No longer separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon, Paul, Logan, and special guest Jake Kaufman.
Special Jake.
That's
You're
special
Jake.
We are live with the Breakdown podcast using our brand new studio setup. This is a table that I built with my wife.
This is a
My
computer
wife.
not built with
He's
his
so
wife.
handy.
Oh, thanks. I didn't really do much. So yeah, it's been a while since we've done a breakdown. It's been a while since we've done a podcast like this. It's nice to have you guys in person.
It's good to be here. I'm on
Yeah, I mean, this is also weird because like we're all sitting at the same table. There's this nice table. Like this is the first time we're showing it on the actual channel, isn't it?
Yeah, I have not publicly revealed this outside of like personal social medias.
Yeah.
And also we have arm room. Like we're not on top of each other, which is really nice.
Yeah, and not to mention just all these beautiful mic arms just like coming our way.
Yeah, the mic arm thing was like we weren't really sure if it was going to work out, but luckily it worked out the way I intended.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all feeding together really nicely. So Jake, you are new here.
I am.
So why don't you give us a breakdown on who you are, what you do?
A loser. Okay. I'm a musician by trade, for the most part. I work construction. I'm a nerd. A weeb, if you will.
Aren't we all?
Oh, then you
My
will
parents
fit
asked me,
in.
what are you doing this
well.
weekend? I said, I'm going on a podcast to talk about nerd stuff. So let's talk about nerd stuff.
Beautiful. But before we get into the nerd stuff, we like to talk a little bit about, what we've been up to as far as life goes. And I've pretty much given you the lowdown on myself, built this table. So I'm going to throw it to you, Paul. What's been going on?
So with this table, we spent like 2 hours at Lowe's working with the gentleman there, trying to make sure all the measurements were correct. That guy is fantastic.
Thanks, Lowe's guy.
I'm not shamelessly plugging Lowe's because I work for them. What? Crazy. Outside of that, though, I've been trying to better myself, and in that attempt, I've been hitting the gym every day this week, and you can't really see it with my jacket, but I'm getting swole.
It's there.
Oh, yeah.
I can vouch.
I've been
Baby.
feeling like the same, except like I don't actively work out, but my actual job that I do on a day-to-day basis involves a lot of physical labor. So I'm lifting up like heavy speakers and all this other stuff. And I like I'll look at myself in the mirror, like throw off my shirt and just be like, oh, okay. I think something happening here.
Hey, gorgeous.
Yeah. Just
Look at
like
you.
I'm feeling a little buff, even though it's like I don't feel like I'm doing a ton.
Yeah. I mean, I actually started because like my job is very physically intense. I'm throwing boxes for lawnmowers and air conditioners into a trailer all day for 10 hours, and I stopped breaking a sweat, which was concerning me. So I'm like, well, maybe it's time to hit the gym. So after working like a 10-hour shift, I stop at the Y on the way home.
Lift some more.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've been joining you when you go on the weekends, and yeah, it's liberating in a way to work out. It feels good.
Oh yeah. And then
Lots
when you start
of
to see the results-
lots of endorphins. I remember in like high school, there was always like some PE teacher who was like, "Okay, it's time to like, get revved up and to get fit and stuff like. You got to really like, activate those endorphins and like really into it." I
Sick
always
gains,
kind of
bruh.
appreciate it. It's nice to see somebody who's really like, actively like, hey, we should be fit, but then also just go over the top with it.
Some old Greek dude said
You-
it's a crime to
He
like,
gave
not
himself
know
over
what
to
your
the
physical
fitness.
body is capable
Yeah,
of.
and for the inevitable like projects that we do in the future, like there's going to be these zany characters that is going to come right out of our like own experience. I'm just waiting for like a reason to include somebody who's just really obsessed with endorphins.
You look like you got hit with something, Paul.
Oh no, I'm just laughing at the comments here.
Oh, we got both Jake Paul and Logan Paul.
Oh, amazing! Well, welcome,
Jake
guys.
Paul, Logan Paul, Brandon Paul, but he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Talking about fitness, it's weird to me. Like, it was really pushed in high school, like you said, but honestly, my gym teachers never really taught me how to work out efficiently. So, like, whenever we'd go to the gym, we were just in there just kind of, like, lifting a couple dumbbells, maybe doing a few push-ups with really no guidance.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, if my gym teachers had actively taught me how to efficiently work out, maybe I would have been doing it all
That's
these
the
years.
biggest like gateway to like getting into working out is like just having somebody who like knows their stuff and says like this is what you do, this is how you efficiently work your body, like safely work your body.
I really wish that
Totally
like
makes a
they
difference.
taught routines
Yeah.
when I was in gym in high school. Like it was like you said, you just get thrown in the weight room and like, hey, lift something, don't stop.
That was
And they just, like,
literally
move around.
that was literally one of my
aimlessly.
classes where my teacher kept getting on my case because I wasn't doing a whole lot. So I just sat there with a dumbbell and I just kept curling it
And
for
then
an
it
hour.
was like that was it.
Yeah.
See, for me, like I did like a weight training class, right? And they always had like they had to set like some goals. They were like, okay, you want to like make sure you're targeting like a certain part of your body. Do at least like 3 different exercises every time you'd come in. And man, I got pretty swole. I remember having like some real like definition in my upper body and like, like the little horseshoe that you get in your, your bicep and tricep and stuff like that. Yeah, it feels good. And it feels good, especially once you start to like, it really starts to like show physically.
Yeah. I remember it's kind of funny. Like my fitness journey kind of began with you two. Back when we were in college.
Late night runs.
I remember like for a while we were like running to the gym because it was quite a distance from the main campus.
A mile and a half or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it was.
we'd run to the gym, we'd work out. Did we run back too?
A few times.
I mean, if you ran there, I don't see how you're gonna drive back.
I think we like had a car there at one point because we realized that was a lot of work because that was a mile and a half of cardio there, and then
you
a
have
full
to
workout.
go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we would immediately go to dinner, and it would be like the end of dining hours, so we were like rushing to get food before the dining commons closed. Maybe
Yeah, good old Greenville prison food. Yeah.
Maybe not the
That's
most
what I want
efficient
after a
method.
workout.
The prison food, like food at the prison, I've heard was actually much better. than
Yeah.
what we got.
I'd put money on it easily.
They're on a higher tier of Sodexo than we were.
I would hope so, because I mean, they shouldn't be subjected to cruel and unusual punishment.
Not like we were.
That's exactly
Apparently, we have sound only coming out of the left channel.
only out of the left channel. See, that just doesn't make sense because we recorded this.
Technical difficulties.
It's only right that we're having as many problems as we're having right now.
Santi says sound is fine, so maybe the person who's only having left channel audio is just
Having
a
left
problem.
channel
Check your
audio.
pan on your
Yeah, because
speakers.
I recorded it and it sounded fine, right? I wasn't having any left
Yeah,
or
it
right
sounded fine to
issues.
me too.
So yeah, I hope that's not the case, but it sounds like you might have some.
We are recording mono, right?
I believe so.
Santi
Yeah.
says he's getting both channels.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they should just be.
Looks mono to me from here.
Yeah, but we're also blind.
But this is the Breakdown Podcast, and what we
Whoa.
do here is we talk about the anime, movies, TVs, TVs, multiple televisions, video games, all
All
of
at
that
once.
We
nerd
all have our own
culture.
TVs. So.
Yes, Teletubbies. There are 4 TVs technically.
I had this conversation about Teletubbies recently.
They've been popping up in my mind more recently. I don't know
I
why.
just picture like you just sitting there very intently, like just thinking about the Teletubbies.
But think about Tinky Winky, and his name's Tinky Winky.
Yeah,
Isn't
I
that
get
the one with
stuck
the
on
purse? Isn't it the one with the purse?
Just Tinky Winky
Yeah,
had a purse.
he definitely had.
did.
He had the man
Yeah.
purse.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like, it's funny that I have a theory, okay, and I
About
think
Teletubbies.
about Teletubbies,
Okay.
okay. And the discussion that this arose in revolved around like the gender of the Teletubbies, and I think the context was that the person I was addressing, their parents wouldn't allow them to like watch Teletubbies because Tinky Winky had a purse, right? And I was kind of in the position, I was like, well, I mean, yes, the narrator like refers to each of them as he or she, but really like there could be a situation where it's an imperfect narrator and then we are just ascribing gender to these beings, which we don't really have any way of testing whether they were male or female. They might be just genderless gelatinous blobs.
Tinky Winky's just Tinky Winky to me.
Yeah, so
He's
I mean,
whoever he
that's
wants to be.
so I guess it's not really a big thing, but I'm like, I don't think they're he or she. I think they're genderless.
Like legendary Pokemon.
Yeah.
Well, most of them. But to get things started, we usually start with some housekeeping. I do want to address the Patreon once again. That's something that will be reformatted soon. Paul and I came up with an idea. We just have to enact it. So if you are currently a patron to the Break Room Arcade, we'll be making some slight adjustments, nothing too crazy. Basically, if like you're a $10 tier and below, not much is going to be changing for you. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you want to keep the conversation with us even more, we do have a link to our Discord server in the description of the YouTube channel.
Join it, it's fun.
Yeah, get on our Discord, please.
Yeah, you can basically sit around a virtual table with us and chat about pretty much whatever you want. We can play games together. We do that a lot in the Discord server. So if you're into that kind of thing, there's a place for you. In addition to that, videos that we've got going on, Paul and I debuted our brand new series, The Break Room Breakfast, with our Shazam episode, which was actually the 3rd one we recorded.
Wasn't it the 4th?
Or maybe it was. No, you're right. It was the 4th, and it ended up being the first episode because it was kind of topical.
I was gonna ask you about that because I haven't seen Shazam yet, and everybody's been telling me like, go watch Shazam.
Go see
watch-
Shazam.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then after you've watched it, go check out the Break Room Breakfast episode about it.
Because spoilers. We got you.
We liked it. Yeah, so that's going to be a morning show that Paul and I do. We are going to upload at 6 a.m. Central Time. Plan is to do twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, I believe is what we settled on. Because we also have the podcast that we record live on Saturdays at 11 a.m. And we just kind of want to round out the week. So look forward to that. I think we're pretty excited about the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. We got some fun stuff coming for you there, too.
Yeah, I'm personally really excited to see.
Well, you're going to be on an
comes
episode
next.
this weekend.
Yes, this is very much true.
So yeah, it is inspired by Good Mythical Morning, but we are trying to go in our own direction with it and just kind of spend the morning with you guys and make us part of your daily routine.
We're going to start your day off right.
Shared experience.
We're,
Millennials.
Yes, we had that
That's a
conversation.
callback that no one but us will get. I'm sorry.
Essentially, what we're trying to do with our content is we're trying to replace like the Saturday morning like cartoon routine, which has died out largely because of
It really
streaming and
has.
stuff like this. So that's that's why we try to
I missed the
podcast on
Fox
Saturday
box.
mornings.
Oh
yeah.
my god.
That was my jam.
Like wake up, let's talk about things and let's get the day going, and then hopefully the Break Room Breakfast can assist some people in making their days a little bit brighter.
I know we were going to talk about this a little bit later, but Paul, you do have a review you're working on.
Yes, I don't know how much I'm able to say outside of I'm working on a review.
It is a game we got early, and we'll tell you more about it when the embargo lifts in 2 weeks. Was
God,
it?
that's
I think so.
such an amazing like
Actually,
thing to say.
Like under my video games on like the show notes, it just says game I can't talk about.
I think even the fact that we get to
Hush,
say
hush.
like, "Oh, we got a review copy," like, okay,
That just
it's like
it feels good.
it does
Big
feel
leagues.
good.
Here we come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was also just like, I'm blown away because I've got this game and I actually have time to play it before I have to do something with it. Rather than
So-
like, I get the game the day it comes out. I'm having to rush to like play through it and then also make content
Yeah, you
for
get
it.
to really spend some time with it.
The
Yeah.
first review copy we ever got, we got the day before the game came out.
Helpful.
Doesn't help us that much. We ended up getting our coverage out, but it was a lot harder.
This is a speedrun review. That's the best we can do right now.
We're really excited about the particular game we got in. I think this is like the first time where we're like really hitting that upper echelon of content.
Yeah, it's like it's got some notoriety to it, and it's like something that like I kind of was anticipating. I was like, "Ooh, I can't wait till this game drops."
Here's
you
the
know?
thing: like I gave it to Paul because I wanted Paul to get his chance to do a review.
Redeem myself.
Yeah, now he's back on the show. But like low key, if I wasn't working on Yoshi, I was just gonna cop that because I want the game.
Yeah, I mean that being said, depending on the review, no, actually probably not even depending on the review. I'll probably
I
end
think
up
I'm
picking up
gonna-
the
yeah,
game.
I'd buy it.
I'm gonna give you a sneak peek into my mind and my inner workings.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
Oh, there
Just
we
the
go.
little bit that I've done.
It's already
with
been
it,
officially
pick it
endorsed.
up.
This is not a review, by the way. Not that it matters because you don't know what game we're talking about. In
It's
addition,
not Smash Brothers. What?
in addition
Oh.
to that, I'm also working on a review myself, and for a game I can talk about because we did not get it early, and that's Yoshi's Crafted World for Nintendo Switch. I actually started playing it just a couple of days ago, and I bought it 2 weeks ago, Paul.
You've been sitting on that a long time. 'Cause I remember the day you went and picked it up.
I've been putting so much time and so much effort into this show
And this table.
and this table that I just had no time to play video games, on my own time.
Oh, boo hoo.
Hey.
Your life is so horrible.
I love what I do. It's not a complaint. It's just, I was late to it. Nice thing is that I'm recording a Let's Play of the game so that I can get some more content out to you guys as well as record video for the review that I'll do once I'm done. The first episode of that goes live on Tuesday. I think I have it scheduled for 8 a.m. Central, and if you're a patron to the Break Room Arcade, link to that in the description below. For as little as $1 a month, you can have access to that video right now. It's currently up and live.
Yeah,
It's
I'm always
live?
thinking about like extra now that like especially you started doing some of your like even more intimate talks and just uploading that to Patreon. Now that's
Yeah.
public, but I was just thinking of like what else can we kind of do like behind the scenes stuff and just like throw it up there. Even some of the now not necessarily that we'd post some of the stuff that was recorded before the podcast started.
No.
But like
show
stuff
before
like
the
that, a
show.
little bit more candid, a little bit more like less structured, just like kind of an insight into like what we love to do and what we do. I mean, who knows? Maybe we can do something later and just be like, okay, this is for patrons only.
Yeah. Excuse me. For like the last week or two, I've been hitting content harder than I think I maybe ever have, but I'm not feeling I've never felt unmotivated. Like I've had a kind of motivation that I don't think I've ever had before, and I'm wondering how much of that has to do with the fact that I'm medicated now.
Drugs.
A lot, which is kind of why I'm like, oh man, I should really call a therapist.
If you're in a place in your life where you need that functionality, like these things can really help with it. I was on antidepressants for a year and a half before I came to school and met y'all.
Right.
And like it was just I needed it. I was fresh out of high school. I had a lot of angst, unresolved things I was working through, and it totally like just equalized a bunch of stuff and let me be functional again. And then from there I could get the foundation built to actually start working towards bettering myself. And it was very helpful. Like I go see a therapist. If you're healthy, go see a therapist. It's great. It'll help you.
Even if you're not healthy, both healthy and unhealthy people should just
I'm a therapist
consider
stand.
it.
Really about it. Go talk to somebody about your problems. It
I
helps.
stand therapy.
It feels good. We promote healthy mental health habits and self-care here at the Break Room Arcade.
Be the best you can be.
So that's kind of all the content we've been working on in the background, just to give you an idea of what's to come. We really hope that you help support specifically the Break Room Breakfast because we kind of want that to be like the headlining content of the channel for a while. And you guys seem to respond fairly positive to the first episode, so we're pretty happy about that.
I'm excited for you guys to see some of the follow-up episodes.
There is one episode in particular that I can't even describe.
Episode 2 and 3, I actually just love them.
Yeah, It's something. One of them is specifically very different, so you'll know it when it's up. But now we'll get into the breakdown part of the Breakdown podcast. We talk about all the stuff that we watch, play, anything like that. And we'll start with movies and TV like we usually do. I'm just going to kind of quickly go through what I've got because we've talked about it pretty much at length here. And I've been keeping up with Riverdale. I was kind of on break for a little while, letting some episodes build up and getting back on the horse again. So I'm still behind, but I'm catching up.
Are they still dealing with that jingle jangle?
No, Jingle Jangle's that's season 2. Okay. We're in season 3.
Yeah, I still need to catch up with Riverdale. I think just because like I watched the first 2 seasons because they were just easily accessible on like was it like Hulu or Netflix or something like that?
They're on Netflix, and then current episodes are for free on the CW.
Yeah, but it's only like the last 5.
Yeah.
And so like at a certain point, I was like, oh. I'll have to figure out another way.
They did another musical episode.
I know. And after the first musical episode, I was like, they're doing another one? Like, yeah, I need more of it. Because
they're doing Heathers so this time.
Okay.
I still need to get to the first one.
Yeah, like, the Riverdale is one of those shows, like, you talked about this, where you kind of look at it from afar, and you're like, do I really want to be watching that? And then you watch it, and you realize that it's an incredibly self-aware program.
Yeah, totally.
It knows exactly what it's doing, and it's prideful about it.
Yeah, it really leans into the cheese, and I really appreciate that about it. Because, I mean, it is based off of a comic, so it's only like...
Archie comics of all
you're
things.
You're like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, it is. That's what's beautiful about it.
Paul, you mentioned that you kind of like got put off when they started talking about Jingle Jangle.
You're having a serious conversation about a drug named Jingle Jangle. How am I supposed to take this seriously?
Let me call up my dude. I need to.
I don't know, but if you think about it, that's genius. That's genius. Who's gonna be scared of a drug called Jingle Jangle? If you really want to get it out there, get people addicted to it, it's like, yeah, dude, you want to do some Jingle Jangle?
I'm just saying,
dude,
like,
that sounds jolly as heck.
I know at one point they talked about like weed, so like other drugs exist in this universe, but someone made a drug and thought it was a good idea to call it Jingle Jangle.
At the same time, we're dealing with high school kids.
That's the marketing department. I personally think they did a good job.
Yeah, so that show's really zany. I've been enjoying getting back with that. In addition to that, Paul and I, like we mentioned, we watched Shazam. If you want our thoughts on that, just go ahead and watch the Break Room Breakfast. You're going to get pretty much the whole discussion there. Spoiler alert. I liked it.
Whoa.
And before I talked about Briggs Bbear, I did rewatch Iron Man on my attempt to get through the entire MCU before Endgame comes out in under 2 weeks.
Yikes.
I know. It's a lot.
Can you believe that there is a series of movies that is so populated and yet all interconnected in the way that the MCU is? Like, I feel like the scale and the ambition of what they were trying to accomplish, and to a great degree have experienced quite a bit of success. Like, it's incredible to think that, like, this is our reality. Like, oh my gosh, how many millions and billions of dollars were, like, poured into production.
That's a figure I want to see.
Yeah.
Like how much money over the last
how much have they spent on all the movies combined?
You probably it'd be pretty easy to look up like the return, like how much they've gotten back, but like how much someone run the numbers. Someone has more time than me.
The MCU is going to be something that I think is going to be in a lot of film history books, like 50 years from now, because it really is like an unmatched thing. Like the MCU was this grand idea that had never really been done in movies before. Of course, you have like a lot of monster movies back in that era, but they don't connect quite in the way that the MCU movies do.
The continuity is ridiculous. Like the foresight, like that they had to plan this out, and like it's unprecedented. Really, like I can't think of any other series that was thought that far ahead and is continuing and is as successful as
that being said. Like if there was one kind of genre that you'd want to do it with, it's comic book superheroes.
They have the perfect example in just the comics themselves, because they're also super long running, so it's kind of a perfect
self-resetting and it's never ending, which is why we love them.
The self-resetting for sure. We're gonna see the DC universe do that fairly soon.
Please, sooner than later, please.
So after Endgame, are we getting a reset?
I mean, we'll have to wait and find out.
I mean, we have a trailer for Spider-Man.
I did run some numbers. The first three Avengers, the budget alone was $1 billion for those 3 combined.
Wow, $1 billion for the 3 Avengers movies.
Whew, worth it.
Yeah, they've made several billion combined.
Well, I think pre-sale tickets have already like surpassed Infinity War by 5 times for Endgame.
Wow.
It's like the most pre-ordered movie in the entire MCU.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember seeing the first Avengers on like opening day. I went with a girlfriend, and she wanted to go see Dear John. I was like, no. I was like, we're going to see
Listen,
the Avengers.
babe.
And then Passion was like, here's what we'll do. And okay, I don't condone this, but what we did was we went and saw Avengers because there was no way we were getting an Avengers without a ticket. And then afterwards, we joined the 2 other people with Dear John.
Double feature. Support your local theaters, please.
Support your local girlfriend. Do it, she once in a while.
Go see Dear John.
Or
Buy
do
popcorn. Concessions is how they make money.
Yes, that's true. What were we talking about?
You were watching Iron Man.
Oh yeah, I was watching Iron Man. Did you guys know that movie's really good?
The first one?
Oh
It
yeah.
still
I
stands up.
remember
I think it's the
enjoying
best
it.
of the 3, honestly.
Well, by far. I don't think 2 is a very good movie.
It's
Nah.
been a minute since I've seen it. Can't remember. I know there's still a selection of the MCU films that I haven't seen.
I think I watched the first 2 like within the last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually somehow like 2.
I don't think you can't like 2. I just think compared to everything else around it, 2 falls pretty short.
Yeah.
I don't think you can't like 2, but what I am saying is that if you do like 2, there might be something wrong with you.
Of course.
I mean, always. The thing is,
Get
like,
some help.
I think with 2, that's the point where they're trying to set up the larger universe. That's when they have actual dots to connect.
Yeah.
Where
They
the
hadn't
first one,
quite
it's
streamlined the
just
formula
Iron Man.
yet. Yeah, they were kind of still
Yeah.
feeling it out.
I mean, they do, they do introduce Shield and Nick Fury in the first Iron Man, but I mean that was without any idea that it was going to be as successful as it was.
Mhm.
That Iron Man just shows up with like such a swing in its step, like it goes confidently.
Kind of establishes some of like the attitude that they have with a lot of their films. Like that's where it kind of first seemed like it was really taking form. I remember thinking like, this is the kind of like superhero comics movie I want to go see, and I think they realized that and like really doubled down on it.
It knew it was good before it came out.
Yeah.
That being said, there will be nothing will ever hold a candle to the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. Like that movie is like
stand.
literal perfection. If you disagree with me, if you think like Thor Ragnarok is a good movie, even like what the heck, man? No, it's all about the Incredible Hulk. Any MCU film afterwards is
He's so passionate,
fake.
he's smacking the
It's
mic.
fake. It's fake. They even changed Edward Norton. They were like, no, Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo. He totally doesn't look like Bruce Banner. It's more definitely Edward Norton. So you guys can all get lost with all that.
Fun
Oh, man.
fact: I had to watch that movie 5 or 6 times till I could actually like maintain focus on it to get all the way through it. I'd space out and I'd have no idea what was going on. It wasn't until this last year that I actually made it to the end and like retained it all. It just could not hold my
It's like that
attention to
movie that
save
you
my
keep
life.
trying to watch and you fall asleep like 30 minutes into it, and you just eventually after 10 times you get enough. You've seen the whole thing, just never in one sitting.
But you guys are missing the point. Like, because the best part of that movie is when Bruce Banner gets angry.
Don't you mean hungry?
Hangry.
No, just he gets angry and then he turns green.
Wow, I didn't remember that part
He
of the
didn't do that
Incredible
in
Hulk.
any of the other movies.
It's
from
not.
what I can recall.
I mean, that alone makes it better than any other MCU film.
Absolutely prolific. It's so funny to me, like when you think about the Incredible Hulk. I had this experience with my wife back when we watched Iron Man. She didn't know it was part of the MCU.
Just a forgotten movie. Because how much does it actually matter? Like, it's so disconnected.
It sets up like that Bruce Banner can control turning into the Hulk to some degree. That's really the only thing it does.
Oh
at the
yeah,
end
when
of
he
the
gets
movie.
super zen at the very end.
But then by the time we get to Avengers, it's just kind of gone.
Yeah, it's. I think it's like an origin movie, which a lot of those other films were like, I mean, some of them certainly were origin films, but like other ones, they were like, oh, we don't need to do the origin story again.
Yeah, it wasn't so much of an origin story as we were at a point where, you know, he was dealing with the Hulk already. We don't see how that happens necessarily, and we're introduced to these characters that if you don't have history with the Hulk, you're just not going to know who they are.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I almost wonder, like, if they were using Hulk, you know, the Hulk movie, as kind of like a background, saying like, oh, people have seen this before, they're going to know the story, and I don't know about that. I've still never seen Hulk.
I think the problem they ran into with that is that, like, it wasn't Marvel, like, they didn't make it themselves. They kind of outsourced. And, like, that's the reason why we can't get an Incredible Hulk movie now.
Was it done by Universal?
I think so.
Okay.
And so they still hold the rights. I want to say, like, if they want to use the character, it can't be, like, he can't be front and center.
He's
so
got to
Thor
be...
Ragnarok,
yeah.
he was able to play a big role in that without it being, like, about him. And that was how they got away with it.
I saw that with my mom. That was a fun time.
You know, the real tragedy of the whole thing is that we're never going to have a She-Hulk movie because Universal has 100% of the rights to that.
Guys,
Sadness.
okay, we're missing the point right now, okay?
It's like the second time you've said that.
because Disney owns everything already. Like, we just don't know it yet, right? They just bought Fox. We just had one of the largest, like, mergers in, like, history of a media company.
Yeah, I know.
Like, and now that they own they own all this other stuff.
The Big Five became the Big Four.
Yeah,
right?
it's only a matter of time until they buy Universal as well.
Hail the mouse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually really, really looking forward to Mickey Mouse as our, like, current, like, corporate oligarch. But, like, ultimately, like, it'll eventually happen because Disney will consume everything.
I welcome our new rodent overlords.
They're going to own the Break Room Arcade at one point in the future.
Oh, no.
We're going to have a big old mouse in the background.
I'll throw
here.
down.
Big
I'll throw
acquisition.
down.
Get that corporate money.
I will.
Here we go.
I will strangle Mickey Mouse.
Mickle
Mouse.
And then quickly, I want to talk about Briggs Bbear. One of our favorite pastimes when we were at Greenville College together was having our friend Nolan pick out a movie for us to watch.
Oh, the movie
And
parties.
We solicited him for a movie over the 2 days he was here, and he chose Briggs Bbear.
And
Wait a minute.
Nolan is, like, prolific for choosing really great movies.
He
and
has very
did
good
not
taste. He's introduced me to
disappoint.
some of my favorite films I've ever seen.
Who stars in that?
I don't know his name.
Because I think I know what you're talking about, and I probably should have watched it at this point. I think he does YouTube stuff. I think he
he's
has, like, some
a
really
member of
avant-garde.
SNL, according to Nolan. He said he's, like, the main character is one of his favorite comedians.
Okay.
That's, I think, what attracted him to this movie.
And it's affiliated with the Lonely Island. I think there was
Yeah,
some
I
money into
wouldn't
that.
be surprised. I've heard a
Adam
lot of
Sandberg
good
was
things
in it.
about that.
Yeah, and Mark Hamill was in it
Spoiler
too.
alert.
Mark Hamill.
Mhm.
Daddy Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
Still out here.
Yeah, I don't want to delve into it too much, but basically it's the movie starts with a very strange relationship between his son and his two parents. He's got this obsession with this TV series called Briggs Bbear, which is kind of like a Star Trek meets edutainment kind of thing,
Okay.
where Briggs Bbear is teaching you how to be a good person, but he's also fighting intergalactic evil at the same time.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Same.
Actually,
I
the
stand Briggs
villain-
Bbear.
The villain in Briggs Bbear is the child from Teletubbies grown up.
Oh yeah, it's a big sun with a face in it.
A very angry face.
I can't remember what its name was, but it was funny. It's got like a big wrinkly old man face. It's really good. And spoiler alert: this happens very early on in the movie, so I think it's fine. He finds out that he was actually abducted by these people as a child, and they're not his real parents.
Oh my god.
And that he's been living in this bomb shelter, and they've been saying that the air is toxic and you can't go outside. And they were doing it just to keep him captive. The mother's kind of crazy. She's got like a math obsession.
Yep. Wasn't he like both
That's cool.
professors?
It's nice to be like,
I think so.
if you're gonna be abducted by anybody, you should be abducted by educated people, because then at least you can get an education.
Mark Hamill played the dad in this case.
I'm
Oh,
sold.
even better
I'm
when your
sold.
abducted dad is Mark Hamill.
I'd be abducted by a Mark
Yeah,
Hamill.
like that sounds like a.
Yes, Luke Skydaddy.
And essentially, the movie's theme from that point on is him trying to get adjusted to real life, because he spent 25 years
I think so.
down there, not realizing that there was a bigger world out there. But he
And-
still loves Briggs Bbear.
Nice.
He also finds out that none of the commenters in his Briggs Bbear forums were
Real. Yeah.
The true shocker.
Or that Briggs Bbear was even a real TV show.
Wow.
I
It's
think the
a
crazy
Talk
Very
about
good
your
part about
entire
that
existence just being shaken.
is the dedication to the creation of Briggs Bbear.
Yeah. It actually makes them feel a little more psychotic than I think maybe was intended.
To like the extent they had to go through to maintain the lie.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what they did. What was it, like 2 hours long?
I think so, yeah.
And the majority of the movie takes place outside of the bomb shelter. I think we get out of the bomb shelter in the first 15 minutes.
And then the rest of it is just him dealing with,
Yeah.
holy cow.
It's a
It's a
very,
big world.
very funny movie, but it's a very real movie. Like, it's not hiding behind the humor. It's really giving you the message, too.
Cool.
So
Go
highly
on the
recommended.
list. Thank
got a
you,
lot of-
Nolan.
Yeah, I remember watching the trailer for it, and it
The
gave
big bear animatronic head.
Yeah, it kind of gave me a similar vibe to Frank.
Frank.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys ever seen
Thank
Frank?
you. That is a good
Have you
movie.
seen Frank?
I've not, but I know what you're talking about.
It's Michael
Yeah.
Fassbender, so you can't go wrong. It's
Okay.
Yeah, excellent movie. I don't remember the British kid who played the ginger dude.
Yeah.
What is it? He's been in a bunch of other stuff, but he's excellent in it. It's basically about a guy who wants to start a band, and he meets this really eccentric weirdo who wears a paper mache like head, and he's the frontman for this really freaky, weird avant-garde band.
Okay.
And I shouldn't say anything more. It is one of the strangest, but like, there's so much heart in the movie. It's kind of about social anxieties and like how you deal with, you know, just how do you fit into the world and stuff. And it's part of why like this dude wears the mask.
Got
and
it. Okay.
Takes on the persona for being Frank,
Yeah.
the frontman of this band. It's
Hard-
an excellent
hard-
movie.
Hard recommendation.
That's shown up in my Netflix recommendations countless times, and I've never pulled the trigger on it, so I'm going to do
Yeah,
that
you
next.
will. Yeah.
Thank you, US3TCB, for the subscription. We'll be talking a little bit about video games a little bit later in the show.
We'll get there.
Yeah, and
Life's a journey, not a destination.
I'll throw it to you, Paul, to quickly go through what
It's
you've been watching.
both.
All right, so I think I got through it like a week or two ago, but I've been rewatching Master of None. It is Aziz Ansari, and it's a really beautiful show. It kind of like, even though I've seen it before, it still blew me away the second time around because just it's so rich of like perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get a look into the lives of so many like subcultures and minorities in America, and I think there's like an episode where they look at how like their immigrant parents made it to America and the struggles there.
Okay.
There's a different episode where it kind of like jumps around to groups of people who are all eventually going to end up at this movie, and like you have this conversation between a deaf couple,
Mm-hmm.
and the entire time it's just dead silent. And then I think it like jumps to I think cab drivers that were immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and like their attempt to go out clubbing, and it was just a colossal failure.
Trying to picture that.
There's just like it's such a rich experience. And
From what I've seen of it, it kind of reminds me a bit of Atlanta, where like it's got an overarching like plot or like, you know, story to each episode, but it's really highlighting some like small nuanced facet of like a culture, a subculture. Like if you haven't seen Atlanta, like good recommend. I just watched the newest season recently, and
Yeah.
at Johnny's recommendation, and many other people. I was
Yeah,
sleeping on it for a
I
while.
still need to watch the second season because I love first
Excellent.
season.
Donald
of
Glover's a
Atlanta.
genius.
Yeah, you recommended Master of None to me a few times, haven't you?
yeah, I absolutely adore the show.
Okay, I'm gonna have to put that
It's-
one on the old watch
Like on
list.
top of like the perspective of like culture,
Mm-hmm.
it also has a lot of like rich perspective, I think, on like relationships, because it's very very honest in like relationships and just how difficult they are. Like it doesn't sugarcoat it at all. And that's something I really really appreciate about it.
Authenticity is important. It's like one of the most important things to me in art. Like
Absolutely.
your art can be subpar. It can have its, you know, its problems rough around the edges. But if it's authentic and coming from a real place, like
You can
I'll,
believe in it.
I'll mess with it just on principle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A quick shout out to my cousin son Presley in the chat. You did come over here and play VR. Nice to have you here, bud.
But on top of that, I don't know how, but I fell into watching Queer Eye, and I love the show.
My sister's got me on that.
I
stuff.
Oh,
don't-
you
I
woke-
don't-
you
I don't
woke
know
Jake up.
how- I your statement kind of like was kind of grinding, right? Because it's like, how do you not know how you fell into that? I mean, it's just
I don't know what the force was that compelled me to watch it.
dude.
I just started watching it.
It's the gay energy. Like that's really
gay
what
agenda.
it is. Like you
And we're here
can't
for it.
like once you start, like you can't stop. Now I haven't taken that dip, but I imagine it wouldn't take much if somebody was like, okay, here it is, and I was like, uh-oh.
It's honestly
and then just
such a
get sucked
strong
in.
recommendation for me from me because like
See?
today I actually went out and I bought brown shoes because
And they look
really
nice.
They do.
Yeah.
And the thing I've like kind of been taken away from the show is that like looking good really does help you make you feel good.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. See, and there it is. There it is. The utility, right? It is offering you something, and then you come in with those new shoes, and I'm like, dang, Paul, like those are some good-looking shoes. I, kind of want to get cozy with you because of these new shoes. Yeah, and I think everybody could use a little bit of self-care, a little bit of like, hey, be thoughtful with how you organize yourself and how you present yourself to other people.
Confidence in yourself goes a long way.
Man.
A long way to how you present yourself.
As long as you're not going so far as to like, centering your entire, view of yourself around that kind of thing.
No, right.
If you're using it as a supplement to, I don't want to say your ego, but we'll say that just because I don't have a better word for it. If you're using it to supplement your ego, I think that's like the right balance for it.
Yeah.
Because if you look good and you feel good about it, that's like a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
man. You can't reduce like yourself to just one aspect, right? You have to manage like, oh yeah, there's my fashion, my style, my taste in music, my taste in gaming, the way I like to talk, the way I like to communicate with people. Like that's all really important. And man, looking good is certainly an important part. But it can't be all encompassing, but certainly can enhance other things happening.
I think one of the big things with the show is that they target people who aren't quite taking care of themselves. A lot of the people are the types that would really take care of those around them, but they don't have the time to focus on themselves.
Oh, okay.
And so they need that moment to pause and be taught, like,
Treat
it's
yourself.
okay to take care of yourself. There's
Treat
nothing wrong with
yourself.
that. You're not being selfish. Yeah, everybody else's needs are important, but so are yours. And
Big
that's
ups.
like
Self-care.
that's something I needed to like
Take
hear.
care of number
It's a
one.
lesson I needed. And so I really love the show. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, you want to talk about shows with heart. There's a lot of...
Oh yeah.
Well, I've been looking for a show to get me off my butt because it's been a rough few weeks. So maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need some Queer Eye in my life.
Just let the gays
So-
tell you how to dress. Like, I can speak from personal experience. Like, I only look as good as I do because I have gay friends, and they're like, wear this. Do this.
What is it?
Fold
Why?
your
How
pants.
do they all know this? Is there like some like intuitive like sixth sense that like, oh no, that's no. Just here's what
I
you're
wish I
gonna
could
want to
tell
put
you,
on.
because if I could figure out the secret, I'd monetize it and I'd be rich.
Quick shout out to John Alden Davis in the chat.
Yeah,
My boy.
My boy,
We always love having you here, man. Paul, what else you got?
Last but not least, I decided to go and check out The Best of Enemies in theaters. It's not like the movie of the year for me, but it was a very, very solid film. I think it's set in like the late 60s, early 70s in a town that is, I think like the only thing they had left to desegregate was the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the one point that the community was really trying to keep separate. But the school for the African American children burns down, and their options are, let them go into this uninhabitable school building and continue to learn there, or we can bring them over to the school for the white children. And the town obviously isn't really able to work it out civilly,
Yeah.
but they call in an expert in basically mediation. And so he sits them down. He picks the leader of the KKK from the community and a very strong voice in the African American community trying to, I think originally she's working on like getting better housing, taking out a slumlord. And he forces them to be co-chairs of this group, this focus group. And basically they divide up everybody in attendance into different diverse groups, and people kind of rotate around, but they all try and like bring their perspective to the issue at hand and try to come up with solutions that works for everybody. And at the very end of it, they have a vote, and I think it's like 5 people chosen at random and the 2 chairs, and they have to pass what are the resolutions majority vote. And so it's a lot of like that process and learning that perspective and kind of stepping outside of yourself. Movie has a lot of heart.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, I don't think there's any way you can make a movie about that and not have like just the heaviness of the subject matter like weigh into that. Because like, I don't even have to know necessarily what all happens in the movie to realize, oh, that sounds like it's a thinker. At the very, very least.
Yeah. I would hope, like, if you plan to make a movie like that you did put some forethought into it first, because
you should maybe be trying to say something.
You probably shouldn't
Yeah.
treat
It should
that
be a certain
like
thing.
flippantly.
Yeah, it was nice to see like that mediation approach to the issue at hand versus like one group trying to stand up to the other. It was bringing both groups together to try and work it out civilly.
There's a really good documentary on Netflix, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's about a black musician, jazz musician, who basically started this. He was struck by like, where does hate come from? Like, how do people learn to like discriminate and just dehumanize another person this way? So he started just meeting with members of the KKK and people from some of these groups and talking with them. And he's currently, at the time of the airing of the documentary, which is a few years old, he was able to get over 60 members of the KKK to like leave and like change their views. And his mantra was, if 2 people are talking, they're not fighting. So if you can at least start that dialogue, that's the first step. And I thought that was really prescient.
It's
very
amazing
important.
how prejudice, like how easily it falls apart for some people when you just like confront them with that prejudice, and then they realize that like, oh, nothing that I thought about this stuff is true. And when you get to know somebody like that, that's a really powerful tool. Not that everybody's going to be able to, switch over, but like, heck yeah, if there's people who like come from that background and they're like, oh, that was messed up, like that's a win.
The panacea to prejudice is just getting outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like, get outside your echo chamber, your sphere of like what you hear all the time. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I love travel. I got the bug in me. So go out, see the world. Like, there's a million other perspectives out there that you're not aware of, and they will change you.
That's it for me.
Jake, you actually brought a book.
The book. Oh, was it in the notes or?
Dune?
I'm reading let me talk about
we
Dune.
we had a discussion.
Boy.
We had a discussion about Dune on the drive up here, and I bought Dune because I'm like I love sci-fi, and this is supposedly one of the great like sci-fi novels, and I was like, I should read this. I have not yet.
Star Wars is heavily inspired by Dune. When you read it, you'll see the parallels real quick.
But man, Jake was spouting off about it in the car, and I was like,
there's a million things about it I could talk about, and I'm not even going to go into the plot or nothing because it's not an easy read. It's like 600 pages. Like it's a beefy book.
I feel like if anything, you should just explain what you explained to me in the car.
Yeah,
about
I'll
that,
highlight
like,
a few
cults.
points of it. So what I love about science fiction is that it's hardly ever like it's not in a vacuum. Like it can be a fantastical story, but it's usually trying to make a statement about real life and like projecting some idea of like society or the world now into the future to make a statement about it. Dune does that in a lot of really brilliant ways. It originally came out in the 60s, I believe it was, when Frank Herbert wrote it. And basically a kid who's a royalty on this one planet, him and his family are told by the emperor of the intergalactic society that they're going to become the new overlords of this planet Arrakis, Dune, the desert planet. They go there, they have a rivalry with the current family who holds the place, and his father's assassinated and he's exiled out into the desert basically, and the rest of it is him trying to the way to explain it is his mother is part of this, like, I'm going to call them a cult because it's what a lot of people colloquially refer to them in the book. They're called the Bene Gesserit, and what they do is they were the society of women who realized that they could manipulate and influence people very easily, so they trained themselves to like how to like change their voice and like how to like physically present yourself, and they're very good at influencing people. And on a larger scale, they realized that religion and like prophecy and stuff could be used to like really influence people. So what they do is
Get them some Instagram.
hundreds of years in the past, they had like emissaries of the Bene Gesserit that would go out to different planets and like plant the seeds of like some religion with like prophecy, scripture, iconography kind of stuff, so that hundreds of years in the future, someone of the Bene Gesserit training could show up and like fit the mold of this prophesied savior, and suddenly you have a planet full of fanatical people who believe you're their messiah instantly.
Oh, okay.
So
Like,
this is basically what happens to the kid, the main character of the novel, Paul Atreides. And he recognizes early on, like, this is dangerous. Like, he starts having nightmares about this, like, intergalactic jihad that he's going to cause, and so he's trying to work against it. And it's, yeah, a ton of things going on in the book, but it's very poignant. Like, if you want to understand, like, more about the world we live in, it's a very good book to, like, explain some of that stuff. Frank Herbert was like an ecologist, like he was a jungle survival trainer at one point in his career. Before he wrote the book when he was like 50, so he'd already lived a huge full life before then.
Wow.
And it all factored into like what he wrote about, and it's excellent. I just finished the first book, Dune, and there's 5 more. I'm about to start racing through those.
Oh, this is a saga.
I cannot recommend enough. I'll say this: if Lord of the Rings is like the pinnacle of like fantasy and like a benchmark for like fantasy authors, Dune is like what Lord of the Rings is for fantasy to like sci-fi. I would word it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about a sales pitch, right?
I think you sold
Like
me.
that's
Read
just like
Dune, please. It's amazing.
It's like just the idea that you would like, okay, we're gonna plant and then we're gonna show up as the prophets, as your savior. You know, this ignorant, planet-bound people, but then all of a sudden, like, you would just have that immediate connection and be able to like, yeah, we're gonna manipulate you and use you to do what we need.
A lot of the book has to do with power structures. There's a quote that I really like where one of the dudes is explaining to Paul how at any position, like political or government, they attract pathological personalities, people who want power, who want influence over people, and how that's one of the important things you have to strive against if you want to be a benevolent, good ruler.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of just an allegory about what happens when people try to get along and rule each other. It's fascinating. I loved it so much.
Let's check that out.
I wish I could read.
Oh, also, I mean, part of the reason I even considered reading
you.
Dune in the first place is because there is currently a remake of the movie in the works.
Denis Villeneuve, if you saw Blade Runner 2049 or
yeah.
Arrival, yeah, he's doing a Dune remake.
Adore both of those movies.
Yeah, he's in charge of the new Dune.
Okay, that's
It's
exciting.
gonna
So
be
that's where this really
amazing.
ties in. Is they're working on a movie, and I think people are have increasingly.
You got me
higher
hyped about a
expect-
movie for a book I haven't read yet.
Dude, it's gonna be legit. The cast they've announced is great. Timothy Chalamet is playing Paul.
Is that the main character?
Yes.
Wait.
Josh Brolin is playing a character.
Why didn't
in
you
it.
mention Timothy Chalamet?
Josh Brolin.
I can,
Josh
like that's all
Brolin.
you would have had to say. You didn't mention that earlier. You said like, yeah, the cast is good.
Javier Bardem is playing the leader of the Fremen, which are the native people on Dune.
Okay.
So, Javier Bardem. What else do you need to know?
I don't know who Javier Bardem
No
is.
Country for Old Men. Anton Chigurh, the villain in that.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm down. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Is there like a timetable for that, or?
It's currently filming. I think the first one's supposed to come out next year.
Woo!
I think he's
like
doing it in
2
two
movies.
parts. It's such a
Okay.
big undertaking.
For
There was-
just Dune.
Yeah, there was a
Okay.
previous attempt to make it. Why am I blanking on the director's name? Eraserhead. David Lynch. David Lynch made a version of Dune that had Sting from the Police in it, way back in like the 80s, and it's decent. It's not a good adaptation, but it's a good film. David Lynch has never made a bad movie, but it's
Right.
maybe his worst movie. But it's just too big. It's too big to do in one single
Oh,
movie.
right.
So
No, I mean, that
Dennis
book's
is doing
like-
it. Dennis is doing it in 2 films. Like,
How many
Good.
pages is that first book?
around 500-600, I think.
Yeah.
It's an undertaking. I read it in like a week because I couldn't stop.
So is the whole series going to be 2-parters, or all the books that long?
I don't know what the plans are to adapt.
Yeah,
the
I
later
guess it really
novels
depends
right
on how
now, but the
much-
first one, at least, we're getting 2 movies.
It
Okay.
depends on how much money they make, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, can we continue to capitalize on this? No.
So are they?
Is it gonna make the money?
Is it going to be 2 separate productions? Or are they going to pull like a Harry Potter Deathly Hallows thing where they do it all at once?
Or Lord of the Rings. They
Oh, that's
really
true.
kind of
True.
recorded all 3 of those movies. Like,
I think there's
Back to
gonna be
back to
some
back.
crossover, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a little more linear.
Okay.
I haven't read up recently on
Because if
what
we
the
only have to
status
wait
of
like
filming is and-
6 months between one.
I
and
think there's
2?
gonna be a year between releases.
Okay,
so,
got it.
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Logan, did you have anything?
For movies and TV, like, I mean, I'll say this: weekly Bob's Burgers episodes never get boring. Always watch Bob's Burgers, and if you haven't watched Bob's Burgers, I also will just say again, and I will say this every podcast I get the chance that I've watched. If you have not watched Futurama.
Get on that.
And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know, I'm gonna tell you about Futurama.
Like, it's really not have mentioned it in like 10 possible episodes.
And honestly, the older I get, and the more I mature, and the more I watch that show, the better it gets. Because like
it gets better with rewatches.
And then also when you gain the understanding of the context of the world, and you really start to digest it, like it gets funnier. Like there's not a lot of shows that I can just keep rewatching and it gets like deeper and deeper, and you see like smaller details that they threw in there that you wouldn't have noticed beforehand, and they're making like overarching criticisms of even society itself today, and it's just they're so well written and so funny, and so if you're a true human being, you'll watch Futurama.
A real human being.
Is that all you got, or we're moving on?
Oh wait, I watched Gremlins. I never watched Gremlins before. At the and I don't think I actually completely finished it, but I got near the end. But then I was like, I'm too tired. I'm gonna finish this. But like what a trip. I got into a discussion with two coworkers about certain movies, and they were like, "Yeah, we love the Gremlins." You know,
when did that come out? 80s. I wondered because the 80s is my favorite point in cinema. Yeah, it's not good, but it's like it was so campy and just like 110% took itself seriously.
I love the contrast between the main Gremlin, Gizmo, who's just this really sweet little Gremlin, baby Gremlin. But have you guys all watched Gremlins?
I've not.
I've experienced parodies of Gremlins.
Okay,
Robot Chicken.
I'll give you a little bit of context. So, Dad brings home this Gremlin for his son. He's like, "Oh, I need this pet." But Gremlins have a few things about them. One, you can't get water on them. If you get water on them, that's how they reproduce. So things start popping up and they turn into more gremlins, right?
Was this the inspiration for the Twonkies on Jimmy Neutron?
I'm pretty sure that's where. That's what I'm saying.
Man, Twonkies. So that's a whole different conversation. But and then outside of that, if you feed them after midnight, they go through a metamorphosis, and they become much more troublesome. And so the whole movie surrounds some of these accidentally reproduced gremlins, transforming, morphing into these other uglier gremlins and then causing a huge ruckus. And it's comedy horror. And I love all the different subgenres of horror, because there's comedy horror and there's body horror, like The Fly. Man, I love The Fly. It's there's just something so intrinsically interesting about just all this transformative stuff, and then all the body makeup, and there's something just really great about it. Yeah, she just the mom shoves one in the microwave and then cooks it. Oh man, yeah. There's a lot of gremlin death, so you might wanna watch out. But it was fun. Again, I think I have maybe 10 or 15 minutes left to actually finish up the movie. But yeah, it's a blast, and I kind of want my own Gizmo.
Check out the 80s. There's some gems. My all-time favorite 80s action movies, I think, were the best, right? Oh, yeah. If you've never seen a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie...
That's Maximum Camp.
Yes. Hard Target is my personal favorite. There's a scene where he literally, a puppet animatronic snake comes down out of a branch above him, and he just grabs it and punches it in the face. What more do you want out of cinema? That's it. That's the peak right there.
Peak cinema right there.
Well, we're going to talk about another aspect of cinema that is for a long time has been much maligned in the United States, but I think it's achieving
Gaining
more
traction.
Yeah,
It is.
It's
It's becoming more acceptable.
Of course, I'm talking about
Video games.
exact anime.
Yeah, we are.
The
we
weeb
are
stuff.
disclosure. We're all weebs. Everybody at this table.
Not in
is
recovery.
unashamed.
No shame.
You weren't at the start, and they've heard this story before.
Oh yeah, no, and honestly, everybody at this table is part of that journey.
This is the genesis.
You guys
of your
remember
weebery.
watching Mushishi in
Infected
your
him.
guys'
Yeah.
dorm room?
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
freshman
passed
year
the
of college.
disease
That
on.
tiny little television.
We never quite got producer Johnny, but we've tried.
We'll get
It's
him.
it's only a matter of time. We
He
just
likes
gotta
Star Wars. He's gonna like it.
we gotta find him the right show. Let's put him on Kai. Let's just have him start watching. Dragon Ball
Cowboy Bebop.
or Bebop.
That's the
For
go-to,
breakfast
like-
tomorrow.
That's a good idea.
I did watch some Clannad with you guys back in the day.
Did you?
Great show, but it wouldn't be the one I'd recommend to start.
That's not definitely not a starter anime.
And I think, okay, if I can rant
You
about
gotta
this,
ease into Clan.
I think part of the what took anime so long to catch on is that there is a certain amount of cultural like awareness you need to like kind of understand and appreciate
Yeah.
it. This is something that being friends with you was so fun with at first because like I'd always loved the medium for a long time, and then we had many conversations about if you don't understand certain things about Japanese society, their culture, their history, like certain things in it are not going to make sense. And some
Yeah.
anime are more accessible, like Full Metal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop. Anybody can watch those. But there's certain other ones where it's like, man, if you don't have some kind of like foreknowledge or like, yeah, it's not going to make sense. A lot of the humor, a lot of the jokes, a lot of the
I think a great example of that is Sergeant Frog.
oh, absolutely, yes.
Like it was so rooted in Japanese humor and Japanese references that for the English dub,
They had to change stuff. Like they had a Dick Cheney joke
Yep.
in one episode.
they
That
just like
killed
went
me.
full Western on the dub just to make it accessible to Westerners, which is honestly the only way you could adapt that show for
Yeah.
another audience.
One of my favorites. Shout out Sergeant Frog.
Absolutely.
Had me in stitches.
Like the one show I can think of, and this is our friend Josiah's favorite anime. It's Nichijou, which is an anime based off of a 4-panel comic strip. That the humor was like so overtly Japanese that Funimation, who has the license to the series, didn't even bother doing a dub. They released the sub on Blu-ray in the United States.
Have you seen
'Cause they
any
couldn't
of
do it justice.
Yeah.
So when people ask me like what anime to watch, I usually recommend the safe ones and stuff. But I've been trying to find more educational shows. The safe ones. There's not a double entendre there. So, but there's I'm trying to find shows that are like educative. Like how do I like try to like start you understanding? And I found one. Have you seen any of Skullface bookseller Honda-san? It was
I-
originally a manga.
I've seen I've seen like previews for it. I've wanted to watch
You've
it.
probably seen the memes. Like,
Yeah.
it's brilliant. It's little like 15-minute vignettes of this guy who just works at a book selling store, and they explain the humor in it. He goes into the background of like why these are like faux pas in Japanese culture. Or, like, there's a whole episode where he has to deal with the yaoi fangirls. Like, I forget what they
boy.
call it, what the word is, but like, yeah, he has to deal with them like looking for things and. Oh, it's brilliant. It's so funny. And because it explains the humor, my dad could sit down and like be like, oh, this is why this is funny.
Oh, that's great. I should check that out. That sounds fantastic.
That one I think is still currently airing or just finished up. I can't quite remember, but I loved it. Super funny.
My suggestion was going to actually be Naruto, because Naruto was my kind of introduction into Japanese
A
culture.
lot of people's, yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
obviously,
not even Dragon Ball.
well,
Tell it how you really feel.
Dragon Ball. Well, I mean, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z doesn't lean super heavily into the Japanese as much as
It's kind of its own self-contained thing.
Honestly, it wasn't until like I think middle school that I even started to piece out that like Dragon Ball Z wasn't a traditional like Western cartoon.
yeah.
That's kind of when it's like, oh hey, there's more of this, and that's kind of when I started like delving into different.
I think that's
manga
why
and anime.
I think that's why Naruto was so helpful for me, because Naruto is very Japanese.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
in like the culture that the ninja live in is very Japanese. There's ramen shops, they do the fold your hands thing before you eat, just like
Itadakimasu.
itadakimasu and gochiso-sama and all those Japanese cultural things. And it was kind of it was like Japan light, you know what I'm saying? I was exposed to those things. Eventually I realized, oh, this is Japanese. And then when I accepted that, I started getting interested in Japan. I took Japanese for 3 years. I'm learning Japanese again right now.
Hey.
So yeah, it was kind of my gateway into the culture.
Uh-oh.
Gateway drug.
Be careful, guys. Don't watch Naruto if you
slippery
don't want to
slope.
become a weeb.
I mean, you became a weeb through Mushishi.
Mushishi.
Oh,
is
Mushi. Can
very,
we talk about Mushi?
very
Well,
Japanese.
I think it's only fair to say that it wasn't just one show, right? But it opened the door, and then I watched Cowboy Bebop. I watched Evangelion.
Don't talk about that. No.
I think the thing with anime that like it's hard to wrap your mind around, but it is the evolution of like Japanese cinema.
Yeah. No. Totally.
Because after like World War II, they didn't really have the money to make these big budget films, so they started animating it because it was cheaper.
I've always been fascinated by the history of Japan and their cinema. Like the whole kaiju thing came out of the only nation on Earth that was hit with 2 nuclear bombs. So this idea of a cataclysmic event that you can't stop, you can't do anything about, like that struck me and how much it comes up into their like watch Akira. Akira is a response to, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Watch Akira. It's so good.
I'm just thinking about that one scene
Even
in
Evangelion.
Akira when like the one character is like inflating and morphing and just like
the final act of that movie is
You want to talk
such
about
a
body
trip.
horror?
Yeah, you're telling me.
That's what Johnny should watch. We should make Johnny watch Akira.
Oh, that's a good one.
Actually, I haven't finished it, so
You talk about prolific anime. That was the anime movie that
Tezuka, he's like
Yeah.
considered the godfather of manga, like itself in the art form, right? Like
one of them for sure.
Am I hearing that we should watch Akira this weekend?
I think that's
What might just happen.
That's what we're
I
saying.
think we should watch Akira this weekend.
The
We gotta
sad-
indoctrinate Johnny.
The sad part is like Akira the movie only covers like maybe 1 or 2
and
volumes of the manga.
I read like the first 3 volumes because they had them at the library, and I remember watching the movie as a teenager and being like, "This is amazing! I need to get more of this." And then I saw what is it? How many volumes? Like,
I think it's only 6.
and they're huge.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at it, I was like, "How did they cram all that?" And then I realized,
They did
oh
not.
no,
they chose a very specific spot to just stop. But that didn't stop that movie from being like mega popular.
oh, it's so good for what
Yeah, it's
it is.
really good.
But some of the anime I've indulged in, and there's really only one. Like I said, I've been busy, but I've been catching up on Dragon Ball Super, specifically the English dub. Obviously, I've watched the entire series subbed, but I gotta rep my boys Sean Schemmel and Christopher Sabat.
Chris Sabat is my man.
Oh man, getting to meet them was so wonderful. Chris,
You've met Chris Sabat.
have you seen this picture?
I'm gonna like worship the ground you walk on for the rest of my life.
There I am, 4 people away from him,
Oh my lord.
and that's my arm around Sean Schemmel, Goku himself.
Dad.
Oh, intimate.
So yeah, I'm catching up on Dragon Ball Super. I finished the Goku Black arc, which Logan, I think you're still in.
I'm
right?
still in the Goku Black
I've only
arc.
watched
I've
the
been
fight
pretty
videos on
lazy
YouTube.
about watching the Super as of late.
Well, I just went on Funimation now just to see like where the dub was, because like it left off at like episode 60 or something on Funimation. Now they're all the way through 91. I think they're adding them week to week now
Okay,
from Toonami.
yeah, that's solid.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. And
That'd
I'm
be
like,
a
okay,
really compelling reason to subscribe to Funimation now.
they
that's
are
for
in
sure.
the final arc. Actually, I'm just going to give you my password because they updated their service today. I want to say
Profiles?
up to 5 people can watch on a single account now.
Sponsor
nice.
us.
If
Sponsor
you're-
us, Funimation.
If you had an account beforehand, you get grandfathered into the new premium account for $5.99.
If you sponsor us, Funimation, if you guys are listening right now,
Like, we're not even
just know-
sponsored. I'm just saying this because I love you
just
guys.
know if you do sponsor us, we will be very happy.
My sisters and me are about to get a Funimation now because we gotta get that Fruits Basket simulcast.
Oh, yeah. And that's the place to watch it for
This
sure.
is simul. Wait,
Simuldub.
Simuldub, excuse me. Yeah,
for what?
Fruits
Fruits
Basket.
Basket is
The-
coming back. They're doing
It's a new version.
the entire.
Oh, they're
You're
redubbing
not gonna
it.
stop at
This is what I'm
26
gonna rant to.
episodes?
This is like what I
This is
came
the
here
whole
to talk
series.
about.
Oh,
basically.
are we at this point? Are we gonna let
I'll let Brandon finish.
I'll let you finish, but
Well, there's
So
2
Jake-
episodes of Super that I watched that I absolutely adore, and they're both filler episodes. One of them is when Goku re-meets Arale from Dr. Slump,
oh yeah.
Toriyama's other like prolific work. He crossed them over in Dragon Ball. Logan, you watched Dragon Ball. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember this, but when Goku goes to Penguin Village, when he's fighting against the Red Ribbon Army, he meets a little robotic girl who's incredibly powerful, and her name's Arale. She's like in little overalls, and she has a little baseball hat. And that was Toriyama's work before Dragon Ball. It was a gag manga.
Okay.
So in this episode, they brought Arale back, and they did a gag episode. At the beginning of the episode, there's like a bird on a tree branch, and it says, "Don't change the channel. This is a crossover episode of Dragon Ball Super." And I'm like, thanks for the warning. And there's a point where Vegeta starts fighting Arale, and Arale is wicked strong. And he's like, the only way that you could be this powerful is if you're a gag manga character. And he starts acknowledging the fact that she's from a gag manga. And eventually, like, he just gets, like, blown away by Arale and doesn't show up to the end. And he's, like, hanging on a tree branch, and he says, "That's the last time I ever fight a gag manga character."
Just fucking Kamehameha through the fourth wall.
Yeah.
What's that? We don't need this.
There were no bounds in that episode. There's a point where they imagine poop, and it shows up. Like, with their minds, they create poop from their subconscious.
See, I'm
That's what I
so
do
good at
every day.
making poop, I don't even have to imagine that.
And then the episode after that is an episode I have dearly.
Hoping?
Yeah, it's
the one?
yeah.
Okay.
It's the one I've desperately wanted you to watch, Logan. It is the baseball episode
Oh, yeah.
of Dragon Ball Super.
Every good anime has a baseball episode.
Absolutely. And I mean, Dragon Ball's had baseball episodes before, but nothing quite like this.
Yeah.
It's a baseball battle between Lord Beerus in Universe 7 and Lord Champa in Universe 6.
Oh boy.
So obviously they had that tournament earlier on in the
Right.
series, and they bring them back to form a baseball team. And
It's incredible.
It's an incredible episode because, like, the headlining character is Yamcha, a character who has been disgraced by memes and vitriol from the community.
Any character who's been more dumped on than Yamcha?
Like, it's finally gotten to the point that Toei Animation is finally in on the joke.
Like, we're riffing on him too.
It has just, like, one of my favorite endings to an episode
Oh, yeah.
ever. And you when
think
you
it
see
might-
it, you'll bust a gut.
I think it might be the most memorable filler episode in all of, like, Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's like driving school level from, like, Dragon Ball Z. And everyone
Oh.
talks about the driving episode
Yeah.
where Goku and Piccolo try and get their driver's licenses. That was cut out of Kai, and that's definitely an
Okay.
episode you need to watch. Yeah, it's going to be one of my favorite episodes of anime, maybe for the rest of my life. So I just wanted to get that out there. But you want to talk about some Fruits Basket?
Okay, I got a little background. I've been putting off a lot of other media because I'm trying to double down on my weeb stuff, right?
I've seen that based on this list I got for you.
Real
here.
quick
This is an impressive list. Just so
Real
you
quick
know.
in passing, like I started following this guy fast like 2 years now, Giguk, anime reviewer on YouTube.
Okay.
Shout out Giguk.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite dudes who talks about it. He does
Yo.
reviews of stuff. He does like abridged series, like,
Mhm.
and his think pieces are some of my favorites. Like he did a whole history of the mecha genre. He's done like
Oh, okay.
his most recent video talks about anime as a brand and how it's changing and becoming more accepted. He talks about the whole like, you know, for a long time anime was considered only Japanese animation, and then like how shows like Avatar came along and we're like, is
Right.
this anime? Like it kind of is. Like so in Castlevania, if you've seen that one on Netflix,
Mhm.
incredible. Like that's a Western studio, all
Absolutely,
the way.
Western
So, like,
show.
but it's an anime. Like what
Mhm.
else can you call it? So shout out Giguk, love his stuff. He's been turning me on to a bunch of really great series. He does best of for like the fall season, the spring season and stuff. And
I get that from another channel called Mother's Basement. I should check
I think
out.
he's mentioned them before.
Okay.
Yeah, so he last year he recommended a couple shows that I had to get into. My favorite discovery I made just by myself was Violet Evergarden.
My
That's
wife
the
watched
one
that.
of the-
Netflix, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
it's okay. So I said it was a Clanad parallel I was gonna do. So you know how Clanad like has that incredible build up where like it kind of seems lighthearted and kind of inane, and then all of a sudden the weight hits.
It gets very
It
real.
gets so real. Violet Evergarden does that almost every episode in 30
Yeah.
minutes. Like
Oh.
I don't know how they managed to pull the heartstrings the way they do
Let me just
in
add
such a
that to
short
my
time.
queue on
It's
Netflix.
also arguably one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen. The animation, like I love being a fan of anime in this day and age because the shows look so incredible.
You know,
and there's
I-
no better example than Violet Evergarden for that.
my wife was watching this show on Netflix, and I was kind of like busy playing like a video game in my Switch or something, so I was just like sitting there on my Switch, and like every now and again I'd like peek over and I just see like this beautiful animation for Violet Evergarden, and I noticed like over the course of the series I started putting my Switch down for longer breaks of time.
What is this?
I saw like the last few episodes, and I really want to go back and watch through it again because I could tell it was
In a
something special.
nutshell, it's about a girl who was a soldier, trained, has essentially only ever known combat, been a soldier, trained. Like she's like a robot. The juxtaposition in the show is she's like an emotionless doll, and she after the war is assigned a job where she works as it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but in this universe, either a lot of people are illiterate or there's just this industry that popped up called the auto memory dolls, and what they do is they write letters to people. So you commission a doll to write a letter for you, and they will write it in the most beautiful, poetic, eloquent way that they can. and it's just a whole industry that pops up. So she takes a job doing this, but has no clue on emotions. She's like completely like inept and out of her depth. And so it's a show where she helps people solve their problems in her weird state that she is, while simultaneously learning how to feel and deal with the PTSD and trauma of what she went through. When it finally all comes to a head, and like the 2 episodes that get me are when she finally like acknowledges what happened to her and like finally starts to feel things, and an episode where she is contracted by a playwright whose daughter died to finish his like final play. Tears. I ugly
remember that
cried
one,
like
yeah.
watching both these episodes. It's great.
I'm in need of an ugly cry.
Do it. It'll emotional catharsis.
Same.
Like, and it always resolves. Like, it's not a. You're not gonna have to think too hard about this one. You're just gonna feel, and that's nice once in a while.
And every episode's a vignette, kind of like Mushishi.
Yeah, pretty
right?
much. Yeah. Yeah. Comparing it to Mushishi is very, very apt.
Yeah, I definitely feel I like regret not watching it with Michaela when she was watching through it, because like halfway through is when I realized, oh, I messed up.
What have I done? The other 2 from 28, I think that was 2018 as well, but the other 2 in 2018 that absolutely floored me. If you haven't seen Made in Abyss, that one puts the pure, like, you know how long it's been since like I watched a show and I felt like I really was getting into a world I'd never seen before, and like that sense of like adventure you get where like basically Made in Abyss does this really well, and the other show I'm going to talk about, The Ancient Magus's Bride, does it great. They don't throw a whole bunch of information at you. They kind of just throw you into this world and let it slowly grow and come into its own around you. The exposition is really light, and you kind of just have to infer and figure things out.
Okay.
And it does the show so much credit. Made in Abyss is like 12 episodes, real short.
Complete series?
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
I think there's going to be another season. I
Oh, okay.
hope there's going to be another season. A lot of heart. Gets way realer than you think it will at first. It's kind of lighthearted, kind of fun. Basically, there's this big ass hole in the ground called the Abyss, and people have been trying to get to the bottom of it for like years. But it has this thing called the Curse of the Abyss, where the further you go down, you start to get at first you get like nauseous and sick. Then your memory starts going. Then you start breaking out in sores and like bleeding out of every orifice and stuff. And when you get too far down, if you try to ascend, you die.
Oh.
So once you reach a certain point, you cannot go back. And the main character's mother goes down into the abyss, and she goes looking for her. And then she meets a robot who's from the abyss, and it's fantastic, great, super fun, really, really cool. Ancient Magus's Bride.
Check that one on the list.
Ancient Magus's Bride is a little more nuanced. It's basically like those fantasy settings where they kind of juxtapose the real world with just a fantastical element.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically that, set in modern day England, and magic exists, but most people are unaware that it's all around them. This character, the main character, I can't remember her name, totally blanking. She's what's called a slay beggy. It's something from Irish folklore. She's like a wellspring of magic, basically. Like, just it endlessly is spilling out of her. It means she's going to die very young, and she is totally given up on life. She's had a really hard life because she sees monsters. She's aware of the magical world around her. She's totally cut off from the rest of society. She's sold at auction in the first episode to a magus, a mage, basically, a wizard. And he, at first, they make him all menacing. He's got like an ox skull like for a head, and he looks all super just creepy. And he purchases her, takes her back to his house, and then like sets her free basically, and says like, "You're my assistant now." And it's about her learning to become a real person and getting into his history. And the less I spoil, the better.
That sounds really sweet.
It's beautifully animated. At first, it's a whole lot of the same thing. Little vignettes of like different aspects of characters. They go into there's an episode with a succubus that they have to they explain how she's like preying on this old man, but it's not actually preying on him because like she fell in love with him. And yeah, it's really, really neat, really good, and it gets really real at the end. Same way, like 2018 was the year of like real anime.
I
got me right in where I live.
I heard
Anime
2018
did not
was great.
exist before 2018, because
Totally.
2018,
I
that's
thought
real anime.
2017 was kind of meh, so I didn't really pay attention in 2018, and now I'm hearing about all these great things that I missed. So I got a lot of catching up to do.
In
So
passing, I'm gonna
It didn't
say
go anywhere.
watch Attack on Titan, because that's my number one I'm looking forward to right now. Is I think next week we get Titan season 3 part 2.
I kind of fell off of Attack on Titan, though.
Did
like,
you get
again,
to season 2? Because that's when everything went really off the
yeah,
rails.
I think
and-
I finished season 1. I probably need to go back and watch
I loved
season
season
2.
1, and what happened actually is I started to watch the first episode of season 2, and it was really late, and I fell asleep halfway through it. And at that point, I guess I just kind of
Just went on
subconsciously fell
something
off.
else.
Yeah, it was gone.
I know
Happens to the
before
best of us.
season 2 finally aired, I was reading the manga, so I know that it like gets really crazy. I don't know why I haven't sat down and actually watched it.
The season finale of Titan season 2 has, to this day, the most emotional and like gut-wrenching recorded scream I've ever heard in any show, anime, movie, anything.
I'll watch it just for that.
Check that on the list.
It just yeah. You will have to like pause it and like stand up and go like take a walk or something, because it's when they finally bring everything full circle in season 2, it's real. It's real.
That being said, like again, like you mentioned, like 2018, like the year of anime, but even going into 2019, like there's some of these new shows. Talking about like 2018, like Megalo Box. If you guys haven't
I
watched,
watched that one.
13
That's fun.
episodes of just pure like
That soundtrack
Boxing is
though.
my jam.
yeah. And then like one I need to catch up on is Promised Neverland, and I've talked
I started
about,
that one. I haven't. gotten much
I've
further.
talked about that on the show before. And
It's
that
so
one's
funny,
really
like
great.
when you hear what that show's about, but also it's a shonen, and I'm like, huh?
Wait.
That doesn't.
Wrapping up real fast. I'm not going to take up any more time because I could just literally talk about this for too long. So Fruits Basket is the big one I'm excited for this year. Fruits Basket originally aired early 2000s, I think, is when the first iteration of the anime came about.
Yes, I believe so.
And it was like 26 episodes. It only covered the first 6 volumes of the manga. I watched it. It was one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. A lot of heart. Really enjoyed the characters, the way it examines relationships. And what really struck a chord with me was how they deal with family trauma, like inherited generational trauma is kind of what it's about. And just, yeah, with my family history, that was an important thing. So then me and my sisters watched it together and got into the manga. Manga's 23 volumes, so we only got a taste, of what the whole story
Yeah,
was.
that's so little of it.
And I will keep saying this. When I got to the end of that, the last frame of the manga, like, is the hardest I've ever cried. Like reading, I was so happy with the way that series ended. And the new iteration of the show is covering the entire manga series, and it just started this past Friday. Last week. Last week the first episode aired. Tonight was the second one. They're simulcasting, simuldubbing. Funimation has the English dub. I know Crunchyroll has the Japanese. I'm super excited for this. I cannot wait to see what they do. The modern animation, it looks great. Nearly the entire English cast is back, and I've recently become more of a sub guy. But I think, honestly, the dub of Fruits Basket is worth watching because they really take it serious. It's a lot of, like, the people in it are just... Christopher Sabat's in it.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
plays the best character,
What
which
is
is
Ian,
Ayame.
though?
I mean, I can relate to that. There are several anime where the dub is what comes to mind, like Dragon Ball or Code Geass.
Full Metal.
Or
Fullmetal
Cowboy Bebop.
Absolutely, Cowboy Bebop.
How do you feel about the Cowboy Bebop live action they announced?
I think John Cho is a cool choice. I
Yeah.
like the casting a whole lot.
I'm not holding my breath.
I mean,
gonna
I'm not
watch
saying
it, but
anything about
I don't
that.
think we need it, but I'll still watch it.
I'm fresh after.
I hope it's
watching
good.
it again.
I hope it's good. I want it to be good. I just don't have a lot of confidence that it will.
What about Neon Genesis Evangelion having the cast recast?
As
Is this for
long
the
as they
Netflix
include the
adaptation?
original
We're
dub.
not getting the original dub at all.
for the Netflix adaptation you're talking
Yeah.
about?
We're getting a new dub
Really?
with a new cast.
I was unaware of this. Wow,
Yeah.
that's my favorite all time.
Yeah, they were not even contacted to do it, as far as I understand.
Wow. Well, we'll see.
That said, that's not going to stop Evangelion 4.0 from having the original dub, or 3.0 plus 1.0. Excuse me.
How long
Maybe
we have waited.
Shinji won't
The promised
be such
day
a
is coming.
bee this time around.
Any other anime you want to talk about real quick?
That was basically it.
Okay.
Those are the
I
ones that left a
have-
really big impression. Oh, I'm sorry. It was I just finished this one like last week. It just finished airing up. Place Further Than the Universe. That's a really, really fun, just simple, cool little character study. 4 girls who decide to go to Antarctica. That's it. That's all you need to know. It's kind of a moe, like, cute girls doing cute things, but it's way deeper than that.
I think
It's
this
really
is
fun.
the show that Jeff Gerstmann at Giant Bomb was watching, and I wanted to watch it. I think that's what
Excellent.
it was.
Super funny. Got a lot of heart. There's an episode where one of the characters is confronted by like the ex-members of her track team, and she kind of like she's really frustrated and pissed off, but she won't like deal with it, polite Japanese culture, she won't. Just so one of the other characters realizes what's happening, and at the end of the episode, basically they're on a video chat with these girls, and their friend like kind of starts shutting down again, and so the friend just walks up to the camera and is like, "You all like mistreated my friend, and you're pieces of crap. Like piss off." Like it was so like yes, do it for your friends. It's great.
Hey, you guys suck.
You done goofed.
And Paul, you had a couple anime to talk about, I know.
Yeah, to start off, I watched A Silent Voice, and this is something that apparently you recommended to me before.
I've been recommending this
remember
for years.
that you recommended it to me.
And I didn't even recommend the movie. I recommended the manga back when I was reading it for the first time.
Well,
Paul
now that I've watched the
discovered it on
movie-
his own.
Actually, it was
No
a
prior
recommendation.
knowledge, just-
So, the premise of the movie: you have a deaf girl who is just bullied just horrendously by this boy in her class. I think they're elementary school age, and as a result, the bully ends up going through some hardships of his own, and it kind of helps him get his life on track and figure out, like, oh, hey, I'm not a good person. And it's him trying to make amends for it. And the person who I actually remember telling me about this happens to also be deaf. And I know this movie really struck a chord with her. And so it made me decide to check it out. And it's a really just beautiful movie. I'm a sucker for, like, redemptions. And this movie is, like, this really beautiful redemption.
Who doesn't love it?
Exactly.
It's
Makes you feel
always.
good.
I want to
yeah.
rewatch it because I watched the sub initially a couple years ago. I know the dub came out recently.
I thought I was buying the dub, but it was just the sub. That's what you get for buying digitally. So I might have to buy it again just because I want to, like, experience the dub.
For those who end up going to watch it or maybe read it afterwards, just keep in mind it is pretty graphic. Like, especially in those early chapters, the violence, like the things that he does to her, are incredibly brutal.
Yeah, legit trigger warning. Like,
Yeah,
Well, it's also, like, heavy subject matter, too.
Yeah.
absolutely.
You're going to feel stuff.
And
I'm
the
here for it.
the approach they take during the redemption arc and the kinds of responses you get out of some of the characters, I wasn't expecting, but in a good way.
Mhm.
Like the kinds of responses you'd get from someone who's trying to say sorry, or the kind of response you get from someone you're saying sorry to after you left them bloodied on the school floor at some point. Of course, they're going to be a little apprehensive, and maybe they're not quite ready to forgive you.
Maybe you don't deserve to be forgiven just yet. Maybe you have some more amends to make.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm with you on that. Definite recommend.
Yeah.
Going on the
In
list.
addition to that, I've been rewatching Code Geass.
Yay!
I started this a while ago, and
We're
I
looking at you,
put it on
Logan.
hold for, after episode 9.
Is there
But-
another Logan in the room?
I picked it back up.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, guys. We're
Episode-
trying to make a
episode
joke
nine.
and just leave me hanging. Okay. Continue.
I had
Code
nothing, I'm sorry.
Geass.
And so I'm
Apparently,
about
I should
halfway
watch
through
it.
season 2. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to be spoiled on Code Geass if you haven't watched it, just cover your ears for like a minute. I'll be done. I made it to the episode when Shirley died, and I'm just my heart is breaking all
One
over
of the
again.
hardest hitting anime deaths ever to me.
I'm glad I stopped for the day because I just need the
That's
rest
an
of the day to
episode you don't
recover.
watch past. You kind of just take a break after that one.
I feel the same way about the episode with Yuffie, and
Oh,
Bloodstained Yuffie.
I
That's
don't even need
that's
to
a
tell
movie.
you.
I think
just
the
know what I'm talking
craziest
about.
thing about that is just how memorable. Like that's the one thing from season 1 I remember.
Yeah.
It's just all of that at the end with Yuffie.
When Lelouch looks at Shirley and is like shouting at her when he says, "I order you not to die." Like that's man. The
when
field train is leaving the station.
when you see him like recognize what he had just done accidentally,
yeah.
like you'd never see him that remorseful for anything.
Yeah, there was a lot of great moments in the show where he can tell like, "Oh, I screwed up," but that was the one where it's like he's a different character after that moment. Like
Yeah.
he kind of like really just becomes a worse person after that moment.
Mm-hmm. You could say the same for Suzaku too.
Oh yeah,
It's a definite turning point for both of them, both the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
You can uncover your ears now.
watch Code
Wow.
Geass. It is great. Code Geass is one that I have a hard time recommending because there's a stigma with the weeb stuff. You know, it's a fan service heavy show, and I think it
It
works
is.
to the show's detriment. And it's one of the reasons I have a hard time recommending it to people because it's so good in spite of these very blatant just.
When I restarted watching it again,
You
I
guys have been
forgot
telling
about
me
that.
to watch this show for so long, and now, just now, you're mentioning the fan
Butt
service.
shots like all the time, Logan. Like
It's like they don't know how to argue. It's like they don't know how to promote something.
Oh, is that
Goodness
is that a selling point to you?
Apparently it is. I just expressed
Well, go
it.
watch Code Geass.
Guess I'm watching Code
there's,
Geass.
I'm giving you my Funimation login. The entire series is on there.
Watch it or else.
Does Funimation have the uncensored clips where there's nips in 2 episodes?
I'm pretty
no.
sure.
One
Yeah.
in season 1, one in season 2.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it
I
says
was not prepared for that as a 14-year-old.
I think it's twice in season 1, actually.
Is it both? Well, the one I remember is Valletta, and then I thought it was. Oh, it is season 1.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep.
There's one with Colin and another one with Yuffie later on.
Good times.
In addition to you watching Code Geass, I've been watching the Code Geass movies. They're movies that they recently made, which are like compilations of the anime, with things changed.
Really?
With
Oh, I didn't.
Scenes and plot details changed
I did not know this. I have to get on this.
that will lead to the upcoming movie that comes out here in the
Resurrection.
States in May. Yeah, Lelouch the Resurrection, which will serve as a continuation / ending to Code Geass, even though we already have one.
So it's like rebuild of
Remix.
Code Geass.
It is more of a remix because it is being considered its own thing, and
Okay.
the original anime is the anime, and the
Right.
series of movies is the series of
They're
movies.
standalone.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, so they don't overlap.
Evangelion could always pull that parallel universe crap. Like they're related, kind of, but
Yeah. So like I said, there's some key things that are changed, like the way Colin interacts with Lelouch before she knows that he's Zero. They've changed a lot of that.
oh, okay. I need
and
to get on this.
There are
Been
certain
sleeping.
things that just don't happen at all. There are certain
there's gonna be
characters
a
who
lot of
join
that.
sides that they don't in the other series.
You flip flopping stuff on me. All right.
Yeah, the
it
problem is that when Funimation was given the license to do these, Japan did not get them the materials in time in order to do a proper dub, and they wanted it to be out there for people to watch before the movie premieres in May. The movie will be dubbed. Unfortunately, this movie trilogy is not. So, and it's a very quickly paced show, so the subtitles are not going to be on screen very long. So,
Okay. So on that note, did you ever watch the Disastrous Life of Psyche K?
no.
That's a great one, and the first season is dubbed currently. And I watched Jerry Jewell plays the main dude, Psyche. Hilarious, one of the funniest shows I have ever watched. Recommended to me by a buddy who I got into anime, and then he's like, "Have you seen this?" And checked it. Super funny. I tried watching season 2, and couldn't because the main character is a psychic, right? So he hears people's thoughts. There can be 4 different lines of dialogue, like subtitles on the screen at once, and I can't physically read fast enough to keep up with it. So I'm
That
waiting for the
sounds
dub
like
to finish it.
that sounds like a mess of input. Oh no, I can't
Sensory
balance
overload.
all. Yeah,
Like, you want to overstimulate yourself.
what's actually going on here? I don't think I want to commit this kind of resources to try and understand these subs.
Have you watched either of
Movies yet?
their movies? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I was planning on finishing the series, then watching those 2
Good
next.
plan.
They are over 2 hours apiece.
Oh, good.
So the movie 1 is part of season 1. Movie 2 is half of season 1, half of season 2, and the movie 3 is the rest of season 2.
Nice. Cool.
There is a significant amount of season 2 cut out.
Probably all right. There was a bit of the series kind of floundered for a little bit in season 2.
Maybe.
It had its moments that are worth it, but
Well, I can't talk about it without spoiling it, but
You monster.
Lelouch's return is just basically skipped.
okay.
You just kind of, he's back, and I'm like, okay, sure. Oh no, and the number one sin is that they removed the Pizza Hut logo off of the Pizza Hut or the pizza boxes.
Oh, come on!
Monsters.
How could they?
Yeah, I'm absolutely
That's the
been
part we
betrayed.
live for.
totally betrayed.
That's the part we live for. There's honestly though, anything that doesn't include some blatant advertising it's trash. It's literal trash. Why would you
Garbage
watch
tier.
anything that doesn't have a Coke logo in it, a Disney logo?
Hey man, if it wasn't for
A
Pizza
Pizza
Hut,
Hut
we
logo.
wouldn't have Code Geass.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Code
saying.
Geass blessed us.
Are you kidding me? Why would you take that culture out of it?
They
man?
invented a mascot character that one of the characters had a plush of that would hug. For Pizza Hut through the anime.
That was official?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
What
right,
a
today
what
I
a
learned.
nutty
Visit your
world
Pizza
we
Hut
live
lore.
in.
So let me ask you, knowing where I'm at in the series, is it okay to watch the second movie now? Have I covered that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the
Then I'll probably
event
start
that you
watching them
discussed
sooner.
has not even happened in the movies yet, if it's going to happen at all.
I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but
I have a feeling it's not. They're going to right a wrong?
Y'all continue. I need to
Oh, go for it.
quench my thirst.
Did you have an anime?
I
Logan?
did. I have a singular anime.
Do it.
This is a regular endorsement of this anime, and I'll lead off with this. Have you been
Bob's
feeling
Burgers.
down and depressed? Have you been looking for a reason to get out and see the world?
yes.
Well, do I have the answer for you? Watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I anticipated
And
this.
you should watch it because it's very good. And I think I'm a few episodes behind, but man, I love being in Italy right now. And I think Giovanna might be one of my favorite JoJo's. And I'll just also mention this again, like if you guys don't know what JoJo is, the first season is essentially Castlevania. That's the first season, and then it branches off from there. But a lot
It's a
of
very specific comparison.
it is a very specific comparison because it's very in line with that in a lot of ways. Certainly different story beats and stuff like that. But the whole, there's going to be this line of Belmonts, and in this case it would be the JoJo's, descendants and all this other stuff. But yeah, like the most recent episode was, I'm at the point where like the goal and the motivation for Giorno is to essentially kill the head of this organization. So he joins the organization. Close the door. But
You can't be talking about JoJo without me here.
are you into JoJo?
So into
It's
JoJo.
about time somebody watches JoJo other than me that gets on this program.
It's on his list.
JoJo's.
How-
Is, I'll say this. Can I say this real fast?
Go for it.
Here's my single pitch for JoJo. JoJo is the most anime I've ever seen. Like nothing represents what anime is. You can't be a casual and watch JoJo. You have to like
No.
have an understanding of what anime is, and then you can watch JoJo. And it is the. I would arguably say it might be the best representation of what anime is. This story would work in no other medium than anime and manga.
Yes.
We don't associate with casual weebs.
Hardcore.
We're weeb elitists. How far are
Weeb
you?
elitists?
How far are you into the show? Okay, so you're up. So I'm a few episodes behind you. I just watched the episode where Naransha had his tongue taken over
That was a
by
good one.
Spoilers.
yeah. Well, go watch it,
So do-
losers.
how much do you know about JoJo? Do you understand like?
I've listened to a podcast.
There's
on
different like each arc is like a generational. Like,
Oh yeah,
skip,
yeah, I
and
know that.
The show really came into its own in its like third arc, which was Stardust Crusaders, where they introduced this thing called stands.
That's what I always hear.
Stands are like a manifestation of your soul, your will. So
Yep.
every person has like they all have different weird, funky ass powers. Like they can just do. It's the beauty of it. Like it's so bizarre. It's so weird. Some of the stands' powers are so specific and so. It reminds me a lot of the Nin from like Hunter x Hunter. Just very specifically tailored, and like every battle is not about power or like who's stronger. It's about who uses their stand the best, who outthinks the enemy. Like
That's
makes for some
No,
really
that's some
interesting.
Naruto stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so good.
Yeah, that's why I'm so obsessed with like the idea of like any sort of fighting game that includes like any of the JoJo characters.
Well, Dio and Jotaro are in.
Jump Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I heard not a lot of great things about that game.
We might
Uh,
not like that game.
I've
so
mentioned
much.
this before. I want an open world action RPG set in that universe. Like I want to go all to the different locations.
Oh,
I wanna
sorry,
play all
we're
those
getting one for
characters.
Dragon Ball instead.
I know.
more
Oh,
important.
boo.
Oh no.
What'll we ever do?
So
we
that's-
stand Goku over here.
Yeah,
We stand
I mean,
Goku
that's-
in this house.
that's all I've been watching in terms of anime, though. So,
All right.
JoJo's an undertaking. It's quite a bit. but
Yeah.
Worth it. Everybody should watch it.
Here in the last 10 minutes of the show, we'll kind of quick fire some video games. Good thing we have our own video game centric podcast that we do in addition to this.
Wow.
But here, quickly, like I said earlier, I've been playing Yoshi's Crafted World. I'll probably talk more about that on the Nintendo Stuff podcast.
Yeah.
Despite me naming this podcast Anime and Yoshi Exploshi.
We lied to you.
I lied. I'm sorry. But Goku
was me,
and Lelouch
Dio.
are on there. Yeah. So I'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. I think you broke Jake.
It was funny, and then I thought about it more. And yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Quickly, I'll mention Devil May Cry. I'm playing this for the first time because I really want to play Devil May Cry 5.
I would just start with Devil May Cry 5. That's just where I'm like, I'll just play the most recent
I
one.
bought the PC port collection of 1, 2, and 3, and then I bought 4 because they were all on sale. I got all 4 of them for $25.
Not bad.
The ports of 1, 2, and 3 are terrible.
Literal ass.
It's bad. Like frame stutters every 3 seconds. It's bad.
What? Why?
I don't know.
What,
Just-
you don't like frame stutterers?
no, as a matter of fact, I don't.
What the heck, man?
The 1 frame stutter out of 60 FPS every second in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe drove me, or Mario Kart 8 1 drove me crazy.
No, you're just not seeing it the right way.
I'm seeing it all right.
It's part of the experience, man. It's what gives its character.
I'm a FPS elitist.
Frame elitist.
I'm playing through that so I can get to Devil May Cry 5. I've only played the first mission of the game because I was recording another podcast that day with my friend Dylan. That will be available on podcasting sources very soon. It's called The Scene That Got Me. It's about movies, and it's going to be about the Lion King. So
Oh.
we recorded it right
Spoilers.
here.
How did I not know that happened? You guys just
It
keep
happened
it on
real
the
quick, man.
So me, okay,
Well,
okay.
it's an exclusively in-person podcast, so it wasn't like anything we're going to do over the internet.
Right.
Like we do here, except for today.
It's got Dilly Billy.
yeah,
I love
Dylan.
that kid.
Dilly Billy.
I don't. It's almost like I live with him.
Join
or
our
something.
Discord.
Another game that I've been playing, and I've done 3 hours worth so far, and I really love it. I played the demo for this back when it first came out, Nier Automata. I'm playing on PS4.
Hearing a lot of good stuff.
This
about that
game is amazing. Gameplay similar to Bayonetta, with a little bit more you have to be a bit more skilled in order to do well. Like Bayonetta's more about dodging, and I feel like Nier Automata's more about how you actually execute your commands.
Mm-hmm.
But it's open world design, really cool narrative.
I heard the replay value is really crazy because you can only get the big story unless you.
Yes, so
Replay it.
this game is a sequel to a joke ending from Nier, which is the sequel of a joke ending from another game, which wasn't even called Nier.
Yeah, it was what is it? Can't remember the.
It starts with a D, and I can't remember the name
They
of
were
it.
like, hey, that
all
weird
the same
part
creator,
that we
right?
did.
Like the main,
Yes.
I can't remember his
Let's
name
just
either,
let's expand upon that.
Was it all Hideki Kamiya?
but maybe.
Kamiya's on this game, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Nier, the original Nier, you had to play the game, beat it again, beat it again, and beat it again in order to see the ending of the game. And you got more context every time you played through it. And Nier Automata follows a similar concept, and I'm still in my first playthrough. But I hear, from Josiah, he's been wanting me to play this game for a long time, that the story's really good. The music in this game is fantastic.
Bangers.
There was one point where I set my controller down because I needed to take a break from my eyes. And I was in this small town area, and I had the music on loop. And I was like, I'm really digging this. I didn't listen to anything else. I just got into my phone on Twitter, scrolled through Twitter, listening to some Nier Automata.
I had a similar experience with a game I was playing earlier this week, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But
Okay. So I'm really loving Nier. You're going to hear more about it as I get closer to the end of the game. And I know Santi's not in the chat right now, but he'd be very happy to hear that I'm playing through it.
Near.
And then a game that Josiah is also happy that I'm playing is one that he convinced me to buy. It's called Hypnospace Outlaw. Hypnospace Outlaw is a game based on 90s internet.
All right.
You play as an admin for basically a internet service.
Okay.
So there's all these web pages that you can go to. People have their own web pages. It's sort of like a social network, but it's full of all of this lo-fi, early internet, early PC kind of graphics and visuals. You go to a dude's web page and he's got very poorly animated gifs of American flags and like rock music in the background with like clip art text spinning around saying what
The
his name
national
is.
anthem played on an electric guitar.
Stuff like that. There's a you could almost call it a subreddit, but there's a community for people who listen to cool punk music.
As opposed to lame punk music.
But not cool as in, oh, that's sweet. Cool as in cold. And it's all themed around this. The genesis of this is that there was this old commercial for this old cola, and I forget the name of it, but it was like cool something cola or like a soda. And basically, it had this theme song that some dude sampled and made into his like own like remix track, and it was so popular that it became its own genre of music.
So
That's how all real genres start.
Yeah. So the whole genre became cool punk, and it's all these remixes of this theme song for some soda.
that's just vaporwave, man.
Basically, there's this one of the guys' websites in the cool punk forum. Is a detailed like explanation for how all these genres of music came to be, including like fictional ones like cool punk, and you can get like really detailed
That
into
one
the lore.
dude, one dude who just like gave that much of. Those
Exactly.
weird internet historians like, this is the weird niche. I'm gonna just.
That's Fantano. That's what we're looking
One of the
at.
pages was like a spoken word artist who used like the cool punk genre in order to do her spoken word. It's really silly, really funny. And this is only one section of Hypnospace. Hypnospace is the name of the operating system everyone's on. For a little bit of background, Hypnospace is a service that you can only access at night when you're sleeping. This is a social network you're on when you're asleep.
Dystopian.
You wear like a headset. Yeah, it's like super dystopian, but everything's like super lo-fi.
Imagine being online all the time.
There was one on the second day, because it takes place over the course of multiple days. On the second day, on one of the forums, you periodically get added to new forums to admin, and I haven't even talked about that part of it yet. Where these guys basically have an uprising because all of their forums were merged into one. Like these 3 different types of nerd cultures were forced into one forum together, and to fight back, they created their own page that exists hidden within the forum that they designed completely on their own. They're like, we're going to exist here instead of your place because you didn't ask us if we wanted to be here.
Force this on us.
Yeah, it's like super funny. Like it's a huge social commentary.
Very self-aware.
Yeah, it's super
Nice.
self-aware. I can't like praise it enough. Like they nail the writing, they nail the atmosphere of the whole thing. It's super funny. But basically, the gameplay is you are a Hypnospace cop. Basically, you're an admin, and your goal
Internet cop.
is to search all these websites. You get sent. I don't want to call them missions. You get sent cases by like the higher ups at Hypnospace, and they're like, all right, we're hearing about some harassment going on over in this forum. Can you go check that out for us? Or we're hearing about some copyright infringement over in this area. Copyright infringement is the first case you get put on, and it's a copyright quest for these people have been posting like GIFs of this like old like fish cartoon character named Gooper.
Cooper.
And the first one I found was on this teacher's website who was posting all of these pictures of her students, like first grade drawings of Gooper. And it was my job to go on there and take them all down.
The band hammer drops.
And like later on, because they'll update their statuses, she's like, what the heck, man? She gets all upset about that.
Not
and
cool,
then
man.
and then the entire
cool.
forum has an uprising posting Gooper images, and they like created their own community about we stand for Gooper.
Yeah, that sounds like the internet. That sounds like the internet.
You make money on every single thing that you find. And then there are story-driven ones like the Gooper one where they're given to you. And it's just really fun and really funny. It's basically a game about surfing the web, except you have some power.
Cool. That's all I've ever wanted.
Web with
Yeah,
power.
why
Surf the
don't I
web
actually
with
have any
power.
power on the internet as is? I got cheated. We got cheated, gentlemen.
We live in the shittiest timeline.
There was one where I can't remember exactly what I was trying to do. There's a lot of puzzle solving in this. You have to like jump through hoops in order to get to certain places. And I downloaded this software called, I think it's Mr. Professor or something.
How many viruses did you get?
It was a virus. And basically what happened is whenever I was on a web page, he would just like show up in the bottom right corner and be like, "Hi, Mr. Professor, do you need help with that?" And when you hit yes, it like took you to a page to like spend money on him to actually get him to do anything. The reality is that he doesn't do anything at all. He's just there to be an advertisement. But he's supposed to be a helper on the internet.
So he's like Clippy gone wrong.
He is rogue Clippy. Yeah.
Can you pay for him?
You can buy it, I'm pretty sure, because you make money on every single thing that you strike. And
What do you use the money for? Like, is it
you can buy backgrounds for your desktop. You can buy
customization?
You can buy music.
Oh hell yeah!
So like,
That's all I need to hear.
you go into Cool Punk, and I'm gonna spend 11 coins on this guy's Cool Punk track.
Yes.
So yeah, the money doesn't. You don't buy anything that like helps you win the game. You just
there's no
buy
like
stuff.
bonuses or like
Yeah.
stat boosters or. Huh.
There was one quest where I was required to buy money, where I was required to spend money on a like, what would you call her? Like a psychic. Yeah, and like
Internet palm reader.
basically, but she wasn't gonna go through the commerce system that was built into Hypnospace. She wasn't about that, so she went through another commerce thing that required you to like send a reservation, spend a little bit of money, and then you get a link to the real website with the real checkout system. And she was doing it to like avoid the fees that come with spending money through Hypnospace. Bitcoin. Basically, something a little bit like that. And that was one of my missions, was to find out how she was doing it and take it down. And in order to do it, I had to invest.
So,
Fascinating. Hypnospace.
Yeah, Hypnospace Outlaw. It's
I think
super
I'm
fun.
sold.
I think it was only $15 to $20.
What platform?
PC. I'm pretty sure you could get it on Mac too. I think it's exclusively consoles.
but if you're not
Or, I mean,
willing to
PC.
pay up to like 500 for it, don't even consider it, because that's probably how much it's worth.
Yes, sure. but absolutely, I can't recommend this game enough. If you love internet culture and you love people, you're gonna have a great time with it because it's super funny. The commentary is just perfectly on point. They nail everything.
Yeah, $20. You can get it with the soundtrack for 26.
There's good
27.
music in there. There is a Pokemon parody called Squishers, and Squishers have a theme song, and it's really dope. So yeah, that's Hypnospace Outlaw, and yeah, that covers it for games for me. And I think that just leaves it to you, Paul.
Yeah, well, I'm playing Embargoed Goodness. My opinions are embargoed. You can't
Until
wait-
April 23rd.
Exactly. So look forward to that. In addition to that, I started playing Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and I haven't made it very far because I don't have a whole lot of time right now. I can't commit.
It's about 20 hours of gameplay that you're going to have in there, too. So you're definitely going to want to block out some time.
Yeah, I was trying to like play it during the week where I only have like 3 hours a day to sit down and do anything, and it just wasn't working out. So I actually don't have opinions on it yet. 'Cause
You'll
I haven't
get there.
made it very far, but
I recently breathed some new life into my 3DS. I finished a game that I probably could have finished a long time ago.
You might even say 21 years ago.
Yeah, but I finally, for the first time, finished Ocarina of Time.
how does it feel?
It feels good.
all
It feels
fast for
good to
you.
be like there's a sense of accomplishment. Like it's done. I've experienced almost all that it has to offer. You know.
Except for the Master Quest.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure I even want.
Don't worry,
to,
I didn't play the Master Quest for the first time until like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I kind of I put it down. It's like you can now play the Master Quest, and nah.
Now you can play Majora's Mask.
Yeah, Majora's Mask.
You can play
The other
Sleep
one
Mode.
that's on my list as well is Minish Cap.
Minish Cap's good. I played through a lot of that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I've put a little bit of time into Risk of Rain 2.
Which you sent me the other copy for. I still haven't played yet.
Yeah.
I feel bad about that.
So we should definitely get around to playing
Yeah,
some
man,
of
I'm
that
down.
sooner or later, because I really like how that plays. Outside of that, I am revisiting a game that I also never beat, but I have very, very fond memories of. That being Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color.
Classic game.
Like, you can't get much better. Now, I did have a conversation with one of my coworkers, Trunton, who is also very much knowledgeable about all that stuff. And he was like, oh, yeah, but the Game Boy Advance version of Mario Tennis is even better. And I'm like, wait, really? And because I didn't realize it was kind of just the same thing, like continuation.
It's a direct sequel.
Yeah, that's really exciting to me because... Ooh, the gameplay, like, just the fact that, like, it's Mario Tennis, but in the story mode, you're not playing as Mario. You play as an avatar, and it's just like this RPG.
Yeah, you're playing as a kid who starts at a tennis academy, and basically you rise through the ranks at the school.
Yeah.
You're basically playing out a sports anime.
Boku no Tennis Academia.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's so good. It plays so well, and I definitely have a deeper understanding of the systems now playing it at 25 than I did.
I'm sure.
Isn't it funny how a game can make you struggle as a kid, and you come back? I did this with Star Fox Adventures. When I first got that game as a kid, it took me 2 years to beat it because I'd get stuck at parts and like could not figure out how to do it. Like 10 years after I initially finished it, I was probably 21 at the time. I went back and played it again, beat it in 3 days.
Yeah. That kind of happened with Pikmin too. Like I never beat Pikmin back in the day, but then I like breezed through it when I played it as an adult.
Gotta love Pikmin.
Man, playing Mario Tennis and then getting to experience a new game like 20 years later in Golf Story was like a really special time for me. I remember learning about Golf Story the day that I bought Golf Story, and I played it for like 5 hours that night because it was doing exactly what I'd been missing for all these years. It was Mario Tennis for Game Boy Color, but a new game from an indie studio.
Yeah. No, they really struck a chord. And a lot of these indie studios are kind of doing that here and there, like War Groove. You know, we've had an absence of, like, advanced wars.
Just trying to fill voids.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, like, Nintendo supporting these companies and their efforts, too. They're not, like, getting upset that these people are trying to make a game like theirs. They're like, no, they're putting them to the forefront. They're putting them on the front page of these shops.
It's a win-win for everybody, you know. We just get better games, and then people stop, like... moaning and whining about like where's Mario Tennis RPG, right? Like, come on, like that's what I want. I don't like even like Mario Tennis. It's like there's a story mode, there's an adventure mode. Oh, but it's not an RPG with its own character.
It's a bad story mode.
Yeah, so maybe they'll get it right next time. Like Mario Tennis should be what Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color is. That's my standard.
I think at least with Tennis Aces and that story mode, at that point they recognized that was something people wanted, and now they just need to do it right the second time.
Yep, give me an avatar, make his default name Alex, and let me play through the ranks, and then eventually
Alex
realize,
and Harry.
And then maybe eventually near the end of the game you can reveal that it's actually a Mario game.
At the end of the story mode, you go to Mario World and it's like, Alex, welcome to Mario World. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was here.
Hear me out though. What if they got an indie studio to make this game, and then they let them license Mario, but they don't tell anyone. So at the very end, it's kind of like the Zelda.
Yeah, like the Cadence of Hyrule.
Hyrule. I'm down.
That'd be great. That'd be a great surprise to get to the final stages of the game, and then you go to Mario World and
It's just Mario Tennis, boys.
I've been here before.
It's been Mario Tennis all along.
It's like that moment when you get outside the Matrix, except this time it's like you're stepping in. Like,
yeah.
You gotta plug into the Matrix.
So we've been going for about a little over 2 hours. I
knew this one was gonna be long.
Yeah, we like to pack the breakdown podcast because we don't do it weekly anymore. Just because doing 2 podcasts every single week is a lot of work.
Oh yeah,
especially when you have a bunch of other things to do with your day.
And it was kind of an exciting prospect to get to sit here together and podcast in person and actually have it work, despite the 1 hour where it didn't.
It's like this is all we did. Like this has been really fun for me because like I remember all the conversations we had in college. Where this is what we do. We just talk about the things that mean a lot to us, the things that make us feel and experience things. And now we get to do that with a bigger audience.
Yeah, just speak it to the internet.
That was the genesis of the Break Room Arcade. Like after I left school and came back to Rockford, I didn't have anybody to talk to about this stuff anymore, and I needed to
the internet.
I gotta talk
fill
to
that
the
void
internet. Guys, none of my friends are here, but I can talk to you.
But now we can talk to each other, to them.
Yes.
Kind of amazing.
Breeds a lot better content. I'll say this: when I don't have to deal with latency, it's a lot easier to have a conversation.
Yeah, this flows a lot nicer when we're
Because
all
I
together.
can interrupt Brandon anytime I want
Yeah, you can get a word in.
with very precise
Timing. There's very little overlap. So if you liked what you saw here today, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you really like what we do here and you want to help support the channel, you can go to our Patreon. There's a link in the description. You can donate as little as $1 a month to get some access to some goodies like my new Yoshi's Crafted World playthrough, which the first episode of that is available to patrons.
Sponsor us.
Yeah. I mean, also, if you want to do that, you can also become a member on the YouTube channel. You can follow the link. It's right below the chat icon. There's a link to our YouTube gaming page where you can then become a member of the channel. We did actually unlock channel memberships for the entire channel. I haven't activated it yet.
How?
Keyword.
I don't know,
I thought-
but I got an
Let's
email
not
saying
I'll
question
take it.
Let's
Yeah.
just not question it.
we don't have the subscribers for that, but YouTube said, you know what, we'll throw you a bone.
Sometimes you win.
So yeah, if you want to do that, we'd really appreciate it. But if not, we're just glad that you're here. If you want to keep up with the conversation, you can follow me at Babbitt. You can follow Paul at Gunny Source. You can follow Logan at Loggy Doves. And Jake, where can people find you?
If you're under 18, do not follow me on Twitter. Seth to Music Man and some weird leet speak. Read the tweet. It's on there.
I'll put it in the description too, because I don't think I have it in there yet. You can also follow us as a collective at Break Room Arcade to find out when we're going to go live, find out all the videos we're going to be doing, all that kind of stuff. Break Room Arcade. Also, if you want to talk with us a little more directly, you can join our Discord. There's a link to the link in the description for that. You can have direct conversations with us. You can play games with us. We have a pretty large community now of people who like hanging out in the old break room. So
The family's grown.
you can become a roomie.
Every day.
You should join the Discord server.
I really need to.
Every day.
So with all that in mind, guys, make sure to come back tomorrow morning because we will be doing Nintendo Stuff podcast. This is the reason we had to stop doing them every single week because we would do one podcast, the very next day we'd be doing another podcast. We did it on Mondays and Fridays, right?
Yep. There's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning, I think we're aiming for 11 a.m. like usual. We can go later
Crap,
if you
we
want.
gotta sleep tonight.
We can go later if we need to.
Let's go a little bit later and go get some breakfast.
How about 1 p.m.?
Works for me.
1 p.m.,
1
guys?
p.m. sounds good.
Okay, cool. So we'll do Nintendo Stuff live at 1 p.m. We'll be talking about all the news that happened over the last week in the world of Nintendo. That Nintendo Direct that definitely happened on Thursday is a big thing.
Oh yeah, man.
The one that we absolutely, definitely had on Thursday. So make sure to come back for that. You can subscribe to find out when we're going to be live. Hit the notification bell so you get a notification when we go live. And make sure that you're in here for the show. So thank you guys so much for watching. Johnny, get ready with that stinger. Don't break your backs. Break in the games. But for now, break time's over.